AITA for preventing my sister from being scammed by this guy online by telling on her to bro and mom. My sister confided in me that the guy she's seeing online is about to get kicked out of the house by his parents and has nowhere to go, and she'll be helping him with money from the college fund our mom had set up for her. I was instantly alarmed, as this is a common scam, and even if it wasn't, this guy being kicked out of his parents' house is still concerning about his character, especially since they never even met Earl. I failed to convince her not to do it and begged her to at least let me tag along from afar when she withdraws the money and goes to meet him. She said yes, but when we went to the bank, she actually made a request for $6,000. I was shocked and kept hysterically begging her not to do this. She was carrying $6K all in cash and going to meet this guy. She got tired of me pushing and yelled at me to leave her alone, and that she changed her mind about me tagging along. She then just went ahead and hailed a taxi. I hurriedly went and blocked the door and begged the taxi driver to also take me with her. I told him she was irrational and didn't know what she was doing. I ended up going into the taxi with her. On the way there, I called my bro and mom and told them what's going on. My bro said he was coming and I shared our live location with him. My sister was absolutely mad and said I was horrible for doing this to her when I know how much she hates both mom and bro and doesn't trust them. She also said I had no right to interfere even if she was scammed or harmed. She then stopped the taxi and ran out and growled at me not to follow. I ignored her and kept following when my bro in his car honked at us. We both turned back, and when I looked back again, my sister had started running while he got down from the car, and we both chased after her. In the end, we caught up. My bro told her he'll be following her all the time until he sees this guy and he will get him to back off. My sister just broke down in tears, called us all fucking nuts, that she won't be going anywhere and to just leave her alone. We insisted she comes home right away, which she did. She went to her room and slammed the door at my face and wouldn't talk to me ever since. My mom said she will understand in time when she matures how big of a favor I did her and not to worry. But her reaction still ate at me, and I'm not sure if I really did the right thing. AITA for bringing up my brother's premature birth at Christmas dinner to get my parents to shut up. This year I went to my fiance's house for Christmas. It was my first time going, as we would typically go to my family's house instead. I got a gift for my fiance Dan related to his hobbies. I got nice gifts for Dan's parents based off of things I talked about with them before, and I got a small pack of chocolates for each of Dan's other relatives. I wasn't expecting many gifts from Dan's relatives because I didn't know many of them that well, but I was certainly expecting more than I got. At first, I was excited when I saw that there was a big pile of gifts for me. However, once I opened the first one, it was just a piece of coal. Everyone laughed, and I just kind of laughed along thinking it was a gag gift and that the other gifts would be different. But every single one turned out to be coal, all 18 of them. I started to get upset, so I cried and lashed out at Dan. But he calmly explained apparently this is a long-standing tradition in his family where they gift coal to newcomers who are celebrating Christmas with them for the first time. He explained that it's just easier that way since all the relatives who might not know the newcomer well don't have to stress over finding a gift, and it's a fun experience for the newcomer as well. I told Dan I couldn't believe I skipped my own family's celebration for this and left. But now Dan and some of his family are blowing up my phone saying I embarrassed him in front of his relatives and that I made it awkward for everyone. AITA for losing it and telling in-laws to stop calling me mama and trying to erase my identity. I have 2 kids, 2F, 4F. I fucking hate how everyone thinks of me as being just a mommy now. I don't get to be my own person. I'm just mommy. Husband doesn't face this. He gets gifts from everyone that have to do with his hobbies. Man, I get a bunch of mommy shit. Teehee, mommy needs wine. And like matching outfits. I don't mean like one of those cutesy matching pajama sets that the nurses and horse girls wear in their staged Christmas Insta pics. I mean like people actually think I'm going to go out in public wearing some cutesy matching outfits with my toddlers, as though I think they're mini versions of myself. We're dolls. From the time we got to the in-laws, it was mama this and mama that. At some point, my Sil said it and I said, you know my name is, right? She just looked at me funny and said, of course, silly. I said, so why do you keep calling me mama? You aren't going around calling papa. Sil just looked at me like I had 2 heads and was like, okay. This went on all over Christmas. Here you go, mama. Want another slice? Mama. At that point, I was just like, do you guys mind calling me by my name instead of calling me mama? The same Sil as before did the whole golly Gito eye thing and said, but you're such a good mama. I said that I'm not just a mom. I gestured to the things that husband got for Christmas from them and said, why didn't you guys get him anything that says papa? Everything you gave me is somehow related to me being a mom. Why does he get to be his own person? MIL grabbed my hand and squeezed it and said that she was sorry that she made me feel like this. She was just so excited about being a grandma and she never really thought of things like that. I was feeling a little better until SIL2 and SIL3 started going after me. One of them did that whole "are you okay? Do you need to talk someone? You sound so angry." It is an healthy faux concern thing that's meant to shame you for having any emotional response. The other one was angry and saying that is being a mom somehow beneath you and do you think you're better than the rest of us? And all that. When we finally left, he asked me why I'd kept it in for so long, and I said that I haven't. No one listened to me before. I've said these things plenty of times. I've always asked them to call me by my name and not some disgusting nickname that boils me down to giving birth. He nodded, but said that I'd put a big pallor on the weekend and that I need to apologize for the outburst at some point. I said sure, as soon as SILs apologized to me for dehumanizing me for years. AITA for not spending this Christmas in the hospital with my daughter. My daughter has had a sensitive stomach ever since she was a kid. There are certain foods that will upset her stomach to the point where she's unable to stop throwing up. We've seen countless doctors, but so far nobody's been able to give us a clear answer. The only advice we keep getting is to identify all trigger foods and cut them from her diet. We have a pretty good idea of what those foods are: soda and other carbonated drinks, chips, Cheetos, and other similar processed snacks, anything oily or fried, and most sweets. Unfortunately, this is exactly the kind of stuff my daughter loves to eat the most. And as horrible as she feels after she has them, she still refuses to cut them out of her diet, which in turn led to her spending a lot of time in the hospital during the past few years. When she was little, it was easier to keep all these foods away from her because I simply wouldn't buy them. But now that she's older, I can't always be there to check what she eats. She eats the greasy pizza at her school's cafeteria. She trades her lunch with her classmates. She goes out with her friends and stops to eat at KFC and so on. And it always ends with her in the earth, crying and shaking because she can't stop throwing up. This was the case on this Christmas Eve as well, when our whole family gathered at our place. And of course, among the many dishes at our Christmas table were some of her main trigger foods like chips, soda, chocolate, and sweets. Now mind you, these were far from the only foods available to her. We also had a variety of home-cooked, traditional dishes on the table with ingredients that don't upset her stomach, like vegetables, meat, dairy, etc., all of them delicious and well seasoned. My daughter herself says she really likes most of these dishes. Despite this, my daughter chose to eat nothing but her trigger foods. I reminded her that they'd make her feel awful, but she said she didn't care because Christmas is only once a year and she just wants to live a little. Well, this ended with her violently throwing up in the a few hours later. She had to be hospitalized for a few days and only just got out of the hospital a few hours ago. And unlike all the previous times when something like this happened, this time I chose to spend my Christmas relaxing at home with the rest of our family and not in the hospital by my daughter's side. I kept in touch with her through calls and texts and told her that if she needed anything I'd ask a family member to bring it to her, but I made it clear that I would not be visiting her during her stay. And well, my daughter didn't take this too well. She cried every time we talked on the phone, begged me to come over, told me how horrible I was for abandoning her there all alone, and so on. Most of our family didn't take my side in this either, and during the past few days I got called everything from a little extreme to downright cruel and heartless. AITA for refusing to move out. I, 24 Fahrenheit, have lived in the same apartment for 4 years, and this time I've had 2 roommates, one the first 2 years I lived here and the second for the rest of the time. My current roommate, 32 Fahrenheit, has been great until now. She's in a long-term relationship, and over Christmas she got proposed to. Now they want to live together, but they both approached me and asked me to let her fiance take over my lease and for me to find a new place as soon as possible. I have a few problems with this. I feel like they should find a new place together because I've lived here longer. I also told V a few months ago that I spoke to the landlord about once our lease together is up that I'll be living alone since I can now afford it. At that time she agreed and said that her and her boyfriend would look for a place together. I told her this, but she said that when they started looking for a new place that everything else was too expensive and it made for sense for me to move out and not her. I refused and told her that she can always ask the landlord if there will be units available for them in our building. She started cussing me out and has had her fiance and their friends harassing me about it. There's 4 months left on the lease, so I'm just going to ignore them, but when I spoke to my mom about it, she thinks I should let them have the apartment since they need to start saving for their wedding. AITA for putting parental controls on my TV and royally pissing off my Phil. I live with my wife. We have 2 kids, M8 and F6. My wife's parents are staying with us temporarily as their home is having some serious repairs after a freak accident. It wasn't their fault and luckily they had insurance. The repairs should be completed in 2 months from now. I don't really get along with my in-laws, especially my father-in-law, but I agreed to let them stay because I thought the time would fly by and it wouldn't be that bad. But I'm posting here, so I guess I was wrong. My 1049 doesn't have a job and my Phil works late shifts until around 11 p.m. When he gets home, they will watch YouTube in the living room and play music on it at a loud volume with our speaker system. It's not college house party bass tearing apart the walls loud, but it is still loud. My kids are not light sleepers, but this wakes them up. Then they go wake me up because they want me to make it stop. My kids need to be rested for school, and I need to get up in the morning to drop them off and go to work. My wife works overnight shifts so she doesn't witness this. I've tried to talk to my MIL and Phil about it and asked that they please keep the noise down after my kids' bedtime, which is 8:30 p.m. I don't expect complete silence, but I really don't think they need to have the TV on loud late at night. My Phil argued with me and said that he doesn't finish work till 11 p.m., so I'm basically expecting him to not do the things he enjoys after work. I told him he can do it before work or on his days off where it's tough shit. He complained to my wife, who's now taking his side and saying that the kids need to learn how to sleep through a bit of everyday noise. I told her it's not everyday noise and that he and MIL are being excessively noisy and inconsiderate. She's just not there to see it. My Phil has been sending me links to buy earplugs for the kids. I've gotten really fed up with this. It's not my in-laws' house and they're staying with us as guests, and I think they're being really selfish. I decided to put parental controls on the TV so that my in-laws can't use it after 8:30 p.m. until 6 a.m. the next day. Between those times, the TV can't be used without putting in the password, and only I know it. This doesn't affect my wife as she doesn't get off work until 6 a.m. and isn't normally home until 6:20ish. My Phil is now incredibly pissed off with me and said that I'm acting like a child and keeps pestering me, demanding the password. My wife is also mad at me for upsetting her dad. I'm just so annoyed at this whole situation and I'm sick of hearing about it, so I just want to know if I'm morally in the clear. AITA for leaving my in-laws' Christmas dinner after I found out that they didn't make accommodations for me. I got invited to my fiance's family Christmas celebratory dinner. It's my first Christmas with them. I have always been picky about what I eat. Can't help it, and it has to do with psychological factors, childhood, and personal likes and dislikes. Before accepting their invite, I let FMIL know that I wouldn't be eating the traditional food at their celebration and showed her a variety of dishes to choose from to accommodate me. She refused and told me to bring my own dish. I said if I had to bring my own dish when I'm a guest, then I better stay at home then. We went back and forth and I insisted I wouldn't come if accommodations weren't being made. I just thought it was a simple request and FMIL could have agreed if she really wanted me there. My fiance agreed that I should bring my own dish, but I didn't. When we arrived there and I saw that no accommodations were made, I got up, got my things and walked out and went home. My FMIL and fiance were shocked. I got tons of calls and texts from them both, and my fiance came home lashing out, calling me selfish and spoiled to walk out like that over a dish that his mom didn't have to make for me, and that it was my responsibility to feed myself. How is it my responsibility to feed myself when I'm a guest? Makes no sense to me. I told him this and he accused me of starting shit and ruining my first Christmas with his family and disrespecting his mom. Now he's continually saying I fucked up and should have sucked it up for the family's sake. AITA for snitching and causing my friend to lose her scholarship. Dream college acceptance. I am a sophomore in college and have a friend, Tia, who is in high school and applying for colleges and scholarships. I helped her throughout the college process and she ended up getting an early action to her top college and she got a full scholarship. I was happy for her until recently. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours and she started gushing about how Tia's essay was so heartfelt and beautiful. I asked to see it because I thought she had just forgotten to show me, but as I was reading it, I was completely taken aback. The essay was one of my college essay drafts which I'd shown to Tia for reference on writing techniques only. I made this clear. I was livid. The essay was really personal, and she barely even tweaked it up. It was almost entirely copied and pasted. I trusted her with it, and this is what she did. In a fit of rage, I gathered all the evidence of me helping her with the college process, including evidence of me sending the specific essay to her, and I showed it to the school. She not only lost her scholarship, but she also lost her seat in the school. Now, people are calling me dramatic and shaming me for robbing her of her education. She's the only person in her family to get into college and receive an academic and athletic scholarship, so everyone was rooting for her, including me at one time. And while I didn't expect the outcome to be so severe, it was. Right now, I feel bad. I feel terrible. I feel like she took advantage of me, but I didn't want to be the cause of something so horrible. I did myself a justice, but at the cost of someone's dreams. Now I'm wondering if what I did was justified or not. First of all, thank you to everyone who offered kind words of reassurance and support. I obviously cannot reply to everyone, but I am going through all of these comments. You guys helped me realize that I wasn't in the wrong. Red Heart, all the nasty YTA comments. You guys also helped me realize I wasn't wrong. Someone said that they hope all the Tia apologists are worked on my doctors who cheated throughout medical school and had their houses worked on by cheating electricians' face with tears of joy. Secondly, I didn't expect this post to blow up so much lol. I went to bed soon after posting it and thought that I'd wake up to 50 minutes 60 replies at most. Somehow, I'm on the front page too. Crazy stuff. AITA for not defending my BF when my brother asked him to leave. My boyfriend, Ryan, likes to help others. He is the type of guy who would give a coworker money for their rent or buy groceries for our neighbor. However, he can take it too far at times. He often tries to help people without asking if they need or want his help. Every year, my brother, Paul, and his wife, Lily, host a holiday dinner. This year, Ryan attended for the first time. Before we left for their house, I told Ryan that Lily was legally blind and had been her entire life. She knew what she could and could not do. I told Ryan to only help Lily if she asked for help. We arrived early so I could help Paul and Lily cook. While we were cooking, Ryan kept telling Lily things, like, Lily, if you're looking for the salt, it's to your right, or Lily, don't put that there, it's too close to the edge. Lily and Paul both told him that while his commentary was somewhat helpful, it was completely unnecessary. Still, Ryan did not stop. However, things became tense when Lily went to go chop vegetables. When she pulled out a knife, Ryan stopped her and asked if he could take over because he didn't want Lily to hurt herself. Lily said she'd be fine, but Ryan insisted she give him the knife. Finally, Paul got annoyed and told Ryan to stop. Ryan did stop, but he kept hovering over Lily while she was chopping. I asked Ryan to sit down until dinner was ready, but Ryan insisted that he just wanted to help. Finally, Lily asked him and I to help set the table and greet people arriving. We did, but things were still tense. I did pull Ryan to the side and reminded him again to only help Lily if she asked for it. He agreed, but I could tell that he was still upset. Everything finally boiled over after dinner. My nieces have a game they love to play with their mother. They will hand Lily something, and Lily would have to guess what it is. Lily would sometimes make a couple of clearly outrageous guesses to make her daughters laugh. After dinner, the eldest handed Lily the salt shaker. When Lily guessed it was a phone, Ryan piped up and said it was a salt shaker. Lily laughed it off and explained the game to Ryan, but I could see she was annoyed. My niece then handed Lily a coin. When Lily guessed incorrectly, Ryan loudly told Lily it was a coin. This was apparently the last straw for Paul. Paul demanded that Ryan leave since he clearly couldn't respect Lily. Ryan insisted that he was trying to be helpful. However, Lily said it was probably best if Ryan and I left. I quickly gathered up our things and managed to convince Ryan to leave. Ryan is currently pissed at me. He said I should have defended him, especially since I knew he was only being helpful. He also insisted that I should have stood up against Paul's overreaction. I'm now wondering if I should have defended Ryan. AITA for removing the door to my son's room indefinitely. Yesterday while I was making lunch I heard a really loud sound, as if the ceiling was falling or a bookshelf had fallen. My husband and daughter were out. The only other person in the house was my son. I was pretty sure he was in his room, which is at the opposite side of the house from the kitchen. So while making my way there I checked every room and everything seemed in order. I knocked on my son's door and called his name. No answer. I must have called 3 times before trying to open the door, which was locked. At this point, I was getting really freaked out, thinking that maybe he tipped his wardrobe or bookshelf and it had fallen over him and he was passed out on the floor. I was basically screaming his name. No answer. I have no idea how I did it. I just threw myself the door and it broke. Now, clearly the door was already weak, but yeah, it broke. My son was fine. He was freaked out about the door, but fine. The sound was his TV with the volume at the max, apparently, and he didn't answer me calling because he didn't want me bothering his movie. His words were, "You were screaming like a harpy and it was annoying. I was trying to watch the movie. Fix the door." I said no. I wasn't going to fix it since to fix it I would have to buy a new door and doors are expensive. And as soon as his dad got home he would remove the door entirely as it was too broken to just stay there. He got really mad, said it's his right to have a door. He deserves his privacy. I said he had a door and while I was the one that broke it and it was a consequence of his actions. So if he wanted a door he would have to buy it. Until then, no door. He can change in the bathroom. He said fuck you. I said he was grounded. AITA about the door. My husband is fine with it. Says only I know how scared I was, so only I can know the appropriate punishment. I'm now terrified that if anything happens where we really need to reach my son, we won't be able to. But I have calmed down since and I'm wondering if maybe I'm the asshole. AITA for getting my fiance's family gifts that were too personal for Christmas when I'm new to them. I'm engaged to Noah and this was the first Christmas I spent with his family. I met them in the summer after we moved to be near his family now that he's finished with college. We're getting married in February and we're expecting our first child together in May. Being someone who has no family and seeing how close his family was, I wanted to make sure I showed my appreciation for them with the gifts I gave, so I tried to get something each person would love. One of his sisters loves to read and so I made a book sleeve for her with little details from all her favorite books. One of his nieces is on the spectrum and has wanted clothes for her stuffy, so I made some clothes for her to put on the stuffy. I bought his mom a jewelry box that she had admired a couple of times after she mentioned never having a real one. For his dad, I bought him a frame for his office big enough to hold photos of his whole family on, since he always complained he couldn't find one big enough or nice enough and had no more room for individual frames. I included photos Noah had provided me in it. I got his other sister her favorite makeup, which she mentioned she couldn't afford to buy lately. Then I got his brother a signed piece of memorabilia from his favorite sports team. For the rest of the nieces and nephews, I bought wish list items the parents weren't getting. Noah thought they would love everything. He told me I didn't need to go to the effort I did, but he really thought they'd like them. But when Christmas Day happened, I could tell something was off. I spent the whole time worrying that I had bought them stuff they didn't like anymore or something. They said nothing, but then the next day they asked Noah what the hell I was thinking, and I was like some kind of stalker buying them such personal stuff when I'm an almost stranger to them. The next day we saw them again and I apologized for the gifts I gave them and told them I would be a lot more mindful in the future. I offered to make it up to them. One of his sisters called me a stalker to my face and told me it was no wonder my family didn't want me if I was so creepy to do stuff like that. Noah yelled at her. I apologized again and told them I didn't want to hurt anyone and I would learn from this. They told me I had overstepped. Noah said we were leaving and they owed me an apology. I feel so bad. Noah is supporting me and told me I did nothing wrong. But surely there wouldn't be so much offense if that were true. I need to ask a ITA. Also, not sure if this is relevant or not, but I grew up in an unhappy home. My parents were unkind to me and my sister. She was much older and also hated me. I think maybe because of how our parents treated her. But I ended up with nobody who wanted me by the time I was 16 and I was homeless for a good period after that. That's what Noah's sister meant. I had told them honestly when they asked. ETA, I wanted to clarify something that might sound strange. I had spoken to them on the phone before, but we had not met in person until this year. With COVID and us living in a different city at the time, I had not gotten the chance. But they were genuinely all close before this. Sorry for another edit. I just wanted to clarify that we had met in person before Christmas, and more than once too, but I feel like I messed up expressing that here. I met them for the first time in the summer. Also, since people have been asking, they got me gift cards and they did not return the gift. Just wanted to thank everyone for commenting. I am going to talk about what happened with my therapist and work on building up some more confidence in myself. I'm a work in progress. I have been in therapy for a while now, but it's the first time I have been able to see a really good therapist. My history has left me with not very much belief in myself, and my confidence has never been good. I never ever meant to make anyone awkward, uncomfortable, or to make someone feel bad. I can see from a few comments that there are those who believe I was majorly wrong and should have known better. I didn't. It was my first Christmas with a family setting, and my fiance is the only person I have shared Christmas with. But I know that what I did is not wanted by his family, so I will accept that and work on being okay with that. I won't apologize again or be the tryhard. Noah wants to talk to his family when he calms down, but that might take a bit because he's angry and is ready to not see them again if they don't apologize. The kindness of so many people here made me cry and helped me to take some comfort in the fact I wasn't in the wrong for what I did. But I do appreciate the honesty also from people who would not like it and can see that for some it's just too much. AITA for telling my cousin this isn't a grief competition and she should understand that after she went off at me. I had a miscarriage last year which was the worst moment of my life, and it took a big hit in our relationship. Me and my husband's divorce just got finalized last month and it's honestly a different type of pain. But I thankfully have wonderful friends and family who have been supporting me all the way. We had Christmas dinner with family. A lot of my relatives kept checking in with me, asking if I was doing okay and bringing me food. I felt really loved and it was pretty fun overall, and took my mind off everything for a bit. My cousin A's fiance recently passed. She was at dinner, but wasn't talking much and mostly kept to herself. I saw her getting soda, so I asked if she could bring me one as well. That didn't go well. I got upset and started going off at me, why she should have to bring me things and I can get my own. I told her it's completely fine if she doesn't. I just asked since she was already there and she's making a big deal. I looked like she was about to cry and kept going off about how I expected everyone to fawn over me and no one cares about her and her fiance. I told her we're all doing our best. I'm sorry if she feels that way, but this isn't a grief competition and she should understand that. A few people overheard us, but the conversation changed and it wasn't a huge issue. A sister messaged me later that what I said to her is awful and we're all awful to her. I told my best friend what happened and she suggested I post on here for opinions. I didn't think this was such a big deal, but I thought otherwise. Was I the asshole here? AITA for saying no to my in-laws taking our kids to Disney. My wife and I have 2 daughters, 6 and 5 years old, which is prime Disney age. They're both super into princesses and all that. We've talked about taking them to Disney over the next few years as we know they'd love it. My wife has never been before, and I've only been once when I was 10 years old. It was definitely a memorable trip for me as my family had to save up a while for it. We've always known that Disney would be our big trip with our girls. In July, my Phil got diagnosed with prostate cancer. After a few rounds of chemo and some rather intense stays at the hospital, it's only gotten worse. It spread across to other organs in his body, and rather than trying to suffer to fight it, he's opted to just not do chemo and try to live with what time he has left. As a result, him and my MIL have decided to make more memories with family. One of these memories is to take our daughters to Disney and surprise them with the trip yesterday during Christmas. At first, I thought my wife would be against it as well. We've always said we've wanted to get to experience taking them and seeing their faces. However, I found out that my MIL cleared it with my wife last month. My wife didn't tell me because she thought I would be surprised and excited for our daughters. I sat through all of the rest of the night, but when we got home we had a serious discussion about it. I told my wife that I didn't want our daughter's first trip to Disney to be without us. She suggested we go along, but the trip is in February, and booking flights plus hotel plus tickets for just my wife and I for the time they're all going is still going to be almost $5,000. I told my wife that we had to talk to her parents and decline the trip, but my wife is saying that I'm being selfish and heartless by robbing our daughters of this experience and robbing them of a core memory with my Phil before he passes. Am I being out of line here? AITA for refusing to give my sister any of my grandpa's inheritance. I was recently bestowed an inheritance of close to $50,000 by my late grandfather. The reason I received the inheritance according to the will is because I was the only person in his life who would make a point of visiting him at his old age home. I would visit Woodman's 2 times a month to check in on him, play cards, bring him on walks, etc. The main reason for these visits was because when I was at the lowest point in my life after getting home from deployment, my grandfather was always there to listen and talk with me. We were both combat veterans, so he understood me on a level other people couldn't. Here is where the problem lies. My grandfather held a lot of extreme viewpoints that I did not agree with, more specifically against the LGBTQ+ community. I resented my grandpa for these views and called him out whenever he would say something inappropriate. I was very close to ending the visits because of these views, but decided against it for reasons discussed prior. My sister is happily married to a woman and therefore obviously cut off contact with my grandfather. My sister and I have a very good relationship in general, but would frequently fight over my continued relationship with my grandpa. When he passed away and left me the money, I did not think there would be any argument over it as my sister wanted nothing to do with him. However, when she found out about it, she demanded that she should receive half of the money. I was shocked and basically told her no way, as she was not the one who had been visiting and providing care for him for the last 5 years. My sister was visibly angry and we have not been on speaking terms since. This has left me wondering whether I am the as my sister was a victim of my grandfather's bigotry. However, I don't think half the money is a reasonable request. I will accept whatever judgment I receive. Am I the AITA for leaving dinner early and causing a scene in front of my wife's family? Let me preface this by saying that I love my wife. I just think she can be a bit inconsiderate at times. My son has what my wife calls a deadpan voice. While I admit he doesn't show much enthusiasm when speaking, I think he has a right to express himself in his own way. My wife, however, insists that he needs to be more enthusiastic and vocal. She often tells him to speak up or say it with feeling, and I can tell that it gets to him. My wife recently started taking a different approach, which I can tell really bothers him. When addressing him, she talks in the most enthusiastic voice she can muster. She'll even go so far as to clap her hands and make facial expressions as she talks to him. How is school today? Tell me all about it. Speak loudly and with enthusiasm. My son just looks at her like she's crazy, and I can tell he's embarrassed. I have tried to privately talk to my wife about this, but she doesn't seem to get it. She insists that her way is the right way and that our son needs to learn how to be more outgoing. So fast forward to yesterday. We were celebrating Christmas at my sister-in-law's house and my son asked me to pass the gravy. My wife, in her usual enthusiastic voice, started saying, "Say it with feeling. Honey, can you ask for the gravy with enthusiasm?" I snapped. It's one thing to do this when it's just the two of us, but doing this in front of our family was too much. I got up, took my son, and took him to the movies, leaving my wife with the other family members. After we got back, my wife pulled me aside and absolutely ripped into me for causing a scene. She said that I was embarrassing her and that I was out of line. I told her that I was tired of her trying to fix our son's personality, and that I felt this was a good opportunity to make a point. My wife's family hasn't said anything to me, but I've been getting a lot of judgmental looks from them. I just wanted to stick up for my son, but did I go too far? AITA for announcing our pregnancy at Xmas knowing my Sil has had miscarriages. My brother and his wife have been trying to get pregnant, but unfortunately she's had 6 miscarriages. That sucks. I know, I'm not discounting that at all. That being said, she's a center of attention kind of person. She will shit talk other people all day long and try to make herself look like the best person in the room. If anyone else gets attention, she tries to take it away from them, usually by putting them down verbally or by getting another dog or cat. Most of the animals she has were obtained right after other people she knew got pregnant. Well, wife and I got pregnant, discussed at length with how we should approach this. Keeping my Sil in mind was the main topic of conversation. We didn't want to upset her, but we also didn't feel like it was right to let her dictate our actions and make it impossible to celebrate the life that we're creating. So we made t-shirts announcing the pregnancy, not gloating it, just announcing it. Christmas time, we come over to my mom's place, do present exchange, then change shirts. My mother was very happy, but I could see the look on my Sil face, upset. She didn't say anything and just shut herself in the bathroom, then left early later on in the day. Next day she sends this message to my wife. To say I'm disappointed is an understatement. We have had conversations about how hard infertility is during the holidays and how hard, debilitating it is. And I have lost 6 babies. 6? We have 6 dead children. Springing you're pregnant on, and I like that was uncalled for and completely ruined not only mine, but Christmas. You could have sent me a heads-up text about this. so we had time to process this. And if your excuse is, oh, I didn't want it to ruin the surprise for mom, you're wrong. It's a completely invalid fear, because I would never ruin a surprise like that. Not only that, but you also saw how that affected me, and you wouldn't stop talking about it. You're excited, sure, but read the room. I can't tell you how much that damaged our relationship. And honestly, I don't know how many holidays I'm going to be there for now because of what you did. What you did was completely selfish and careless. It showed me you really don't care about me. And honestly, had we gotten a heads-up text, I'd be happy for you. But right now, I'm not. You both ruined Christmas for us. I like why you thought that was such a good idea. You also had an entire hour to do it before we got there. I had to leave early because I couldn't stand being there for another minute in a house that I didn't feel loved in. The only time we talked about it was when my family was asking questions, due date, gender, etc. It's not like we were talking about it throughout the day. Am I the asshole for having decided to do the pregnancy announcement anyways? AITA for telling my late dad's ILs that their granddaughter is not my responsibility. I'm 19 meters and my younger sister Calla 15F lives with me. Our dad and his wife died 3 months ago. Mine and Calla's mom died when we were younger. Dad and his wife had been married for 4 years. His wife had a daughter, Lacey, who is now 5. When CPS became involved because both were left orphans, I stepped up to take my sister. I was already working full-time since I skipped college, and I just about had what I needed to take care of my sister. They asked me about Lacey, and I told them I just wanted to take my sister. Lacey was placed with her grandparents, my dad's ILs. They became aware of the fact Calla came to live with me and that I had been offered the chance to take their granddaughter and refused. Once they learned this, they asked me why, and then pestered me about it for weeks. Finally, they told me they were older and she could use as much family as possible, and that she misses Calla. I asked Calla if she wanted to see her and she said not really, so I told them we were not interested in staying in their granddaughter's life. They told me she's our little sister, that my dad would have wanted us to stick together. I told them I didn't care what my dad wanted. They said not to punish a child for the sins of my parent. I blocked them and continued on with things until they sought me out on social media via one of their older grandkids and told me that I should be ashamed of myself and their granddaughter deserves to be with her siblings and be raised by me since I'm young, fit and healthy and could run around after her like they can't and will be around a lot longer than them. I replied once that their granddaughter is not my responsibility and that I wanted them to leave me and my sister alone because we have no reason to be in touch ever again. That wasn't the end, and they called me selfish and cruel a few times via another account. So I had to set my account to private to stop them. AITA for leaving my boyfriend behind and going on the trip with our friends. I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years and living together for 6 months. Paul has serious problems with forgetting important documents, and after the 4X he did this, I became responsible for carrying our documents in my purse. According to him, all documents have a digital version and that is enough. Not all are digital and not all places accept the digital form. But he is stubborn and maintains this position. I don't mind being responsible for the documents, and most of the time, I have them in my purse. That is until one day he called me asking about his identity because he needed it for something and they didn't accept the digital version. I was at work and I informed him that I had with me. He gave me a huge scolding, saying that their documents should be at home and told me to stop holding his documents. I handed his documents over to him and said that I would no longer be responsible for this or warn him about it because I was doing a favor for someone I love who is a capable adult. For the situation, we and our friends decided to travel to another country on New Year's from the 12 divided by 27 minus 1 divided by 3, and a passport is needed as it is on another continent. We would go to the capital where we would stay at our friend's house until our flight time. Our city is 2 hours away. We decided to go to the airport 4 hours before and I went to check all my documents first. Paul was on my side, and when he saw only one passport, he asked about his and I just said you have it. He panicked, saying he thought I had taken even more passports as usual and left it at home. He decided to run home and come back. He asked me to go with him, but I didn't want to spend 4 hours in the car. He went to get his passport and I went with my friends to the airport. In short, he didn't arrive on time and I decided I wouldn't miss my trip because of him. I turned off my cell phone and made my 12H trip. When I arrived, several messages from him saying that he couldn't believe that I had gone on a trip without him and that I had done it as forms of revenge because of his scolding. The flights are all booked up or too expensive, so he probably won't come. He's still accusing me of leaving him behind after purposely not remember something I know he struggles with. My friends are on my side, but I feel doubtful. AITA for getting up from my chair in the middle of Christmas dinner and shouting shut the fuck up about my body in response to my husband's observation. So, ever since I had my son months ago, my husband has started making indirect comments about my body. He never says any hurtful words, but I find his observations, as he calls it, hurtful. For example, he'd see me wearing an old top and say, oh, that top used to look good on you, but not anymore though. Or when he looks at my waist and says, wow, didn't know your waist could get this wide. Basically passive stuff that I tried to ignore till it extended to friends and family. FYI, this went on for months and months and months. We went to Christmas celebration at his family's home. My sil complimented my floral maxi dress and my husband said, "I agree, it looks nice on you. Though I have to admit that your waist could get smaller than this." Awkward silence took over. I was absolutely fuming and this was my last straw. So I got up from my chair in the middle of dinner and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Shut the fuck up about my body." He was absolutely speechless as his family stared while some others tried to get me to calm down, but situation got more tense and dinner ended up being cut short and my husband storming off to his friend's place to spend the night upon leaving a very nasty text saying I embarrassed him and made a scene over an observation he made. He called me childish and told me to get therapy for my insecurities instead of verbally abusing him and scaring his family. Now I feel like an absolute idiot asshole and like I ruined Christmas for him and everybody with my oversensitivity. AITA for silently getting up and walking out of the restaurant during night dinner after I was told to pay for everyone at the table. I have 32 recently inherited a good amount of money from my mom. I keep the money in a separate account as I still haven't decided what to do with it and I didn't want it to go to waste. I noticed my husband constantly bringing up the inheritance money and making countless suggestions as to how I should spend it. Another thing is that he expects me pay for nearly everything the past couple of weeks. For night, my husband and I met up with his family at a restaurant to celebrate. It was going fine until I found out that I was expected to pay for everyone at the table. My husband's mom joked about paying for dinner out of my inheritance pocket, which made me livid, but I showed no reaction. Just silently paid for my own food, drinks, then got up and made my way out of the restaurant. They were shouting after me like a crowd and my husband tried to get me to come back, but I drove home. He got back at 3 a.m. yelling at me saying I was pathetic to get up and walk out on him and his family after they relied on me to pay for their food and thought I was gracious enough to do it, but they were wrong. He said I humiliated him and family and that what I did was an attempt to get back at them for not being able to help mom when she was sick. Not true is all I'm gonna say. He is mad and is saying that I caused a huge rift between his family and me when it wouldn't have hurt me to pay for the celebratory dinner. AITA for throwing away the elf on the shelf and ruining Christmas for my kids after my husband's prank. For context, this year was the first time we would try the elf on the shelf with our kids. We have 3 kids, Lucas, Andy, and Claire, where Lucas and Andy are from our past relationships. However, Miles has accepted Andy as his, and so did I with Lucas. Every Christmas is special for Andy. His BD is on deck divided by 24. His dad started a tradition where Santa would have consideration with him for being a kid of Christmas, so he feels magical and special. I always try to give him that. Last year, I left Santa Claus footsteps, ate a carrot and grassy left for Rudolph. Stuff like that. My husband doesn't think it's a good idea I do all that for him, and I'm showing favoritism. So, we should shut it down because of my ex's decision to create a tradition without considering my other kids' feelings. I disagree since I do consider the 3 of them, but he asked if we could sew SMTHLs, like the elf on the shelf. I had no problem with it, but I didn't know how that works. He explained me quickly, and since he was the one who offered, I let him do it. We bought the cute elf. My kids named it Bob. Later, my husband explained them they should behave and never touch, hold Bob if they don't want it to be naughty. At first, it was cute to see them spy on Bob, try to see it fly each night. Andy was the most excited of all. I found him one night talking with it, asking it if Santa still remembered him. But my husband took seriously the behave or Bob would be naughty part. Lucas was his first victim after he didn't do his chores. The next day, his face was drawn with Sharpie markers. Then Claire, who touched Bob and her fave once he was destroyed. Apparently, Bob had cut some pieces of it while she was sleeping. Miles was having fun, but I could see my kids weren't. I talked to him about how he should lower the pranks. He agreed but wanted to catch Andy since he hadn't break any rules. I told him that Bob's supposed to tell Santa instead of being naughty. We argued but he finally agreed. Fast forward, it's Christmas Eve and in the afternoon we had some of Andy's friends to celebrate his BD. So the kids were playing in backyard, but my husband looked sus. I decided to look for Bob. It was supposed to be in the kitchen, but it wasn't there. I asked Miles where it was and he told me no idea. I started getting paranoid, but Andy asked me if we could cut the cake already. I put my best face on and went for it. The cake was in a box, and when Andy opened the box, he starts crying. I take a look and it's ruined. Bob was covered in all of it, appearing he had been eating the cake. Half of the cake wasn't there anymore. Miles starts laughing and so did some of the other parents. My blood is boiling and I grab Bob and throw it in the trash, then I grab Miles. We have a terrible argument. Calls me an off for what I did to Bob, that I've ruined it. How are we supposed to keep the magic with our kids if I wasn't supposed to touch Bob? Edit. Hi everyone, so the response has been really overwhelming. I'm sorry if it took me some time to answer. I was kinda avoiding the post since I was conflicted by the possible outcome. I'm going through all your comments so I can answer some of your questions. I'd also explain things you all have doubts in common. 1. Andy's dad is from Canada. He visits Andy every spring, summer, and on Christmas break. This year he stayed for his job, so he isn't an absent parent. 2. After Andy's BDI told Miles to get out of the house, and so he did, he spent Christmas with my in-laws. I stayed with the kids, and all of them slept in Andy's room. My kids didn't want to leave his brother alone. The next morning, we opened the gifts, and I made sure that Andy could feel special after what happened on his BD, so I wrote a note from Bob, saying that he is sorry I've scared him and his siblings. He didn't do his job correctly, so now he would be flying to the NP with Santa. And when he asked if Santa still remembered the kid of Xmas, he did. Santa was really happy to see him. 3. My kids and I are okay. We are sleeping at my parents' house, and we would celebrate now here too. 4. Yes, Claire was using the onesie while she was sleeping. My husband took the idea out of TikTok. And no, Andy did nothing to even be attacked by Bob. AITA for giving my daughter a better present than my son. Our son is 22 and our daughter is 26. She bought a house in July. We know that moving into a new home always comes with unexpected costs, right after you've probably depleted most of your funds. So, for Christmas we gave her $4,000. Our son we gave a few different gifts totaling somewhere around $800. Our daughter had to work Christmas, but we did Christmas on the 26th and she stayed with us for the holidays from then until yesterday. Our son still lives with us, and today he told us both that he didn't want to say anything while his sister was here, but his feelings were hurt by the disparity in the value of the gifts. We explained that the gifts we got him were tailored to his interest, but his sister has just passed a big life milestone where money is more important to her right now than sentiment. He said it's still hurtful because it feels like we are more proud of her than him. My wife got really frustrated when he said that and asked why he would choose the least charitable interpretation of our actions. He said that's just how he felt and he couldn't control it. I said that we didn't give her money because we were more proud, but because we had experience being new homeowners and knowing that something always breaks in that first 6 months and it's always expensive. He said that was all fine and good, but it still hurt to get a worse present and feel like an afterthought. My wife asked if he expected us to get him $4,000 worth of gifts. He said no, but he expected the gifts between him and his sister to be equal. My wife said that's the same thing, and my son said it isn't. He said we could have given her the monetary equivalent of what we gave him. I told him that it isn't really fair for him to decide how much we spend on someone else's gift. Furthermore, cash is less personal than gifts, so giving her a cash equivalent to what he got would be her getting the worst gift. He said we weren't listening to him, just justifying. My wife said we didn't need to justify anything, and he was being entitled. At that point, he said he didn't want to talk unless everyone was civil, and he went to his room. He skipped lunch today, and when he left for work, he didn't say goodbye even though I was right by the door. My wife is irritated, and my son is clearly resenting us. I can't really decide if we're in the wrong here. On the one hand, we should be able to give our money to whoever we want. On the other, I never want to hurt my son's feelings. Were we wrong? AITA for pulling my attendance from my sister's wedding after already RSVPing yes. I lost my husband and the father of my 3 children 5 years ago. We had been together from the age of 17, had married in our 22nd, and he passed at the age of 31. Our children were very young. The last 5 years I have missed him like crazy and have poured myself into focusing on my children, my hobbies, and even furthering my career more. I have no interest in dating or finding a new partner. My sister and a couple of other family members have been trying to push. I mean, encourage me to find a new partner, to find a dad for my kids, to look for more love. I have zero interest. It's something I have discussed with my sister on repeat. She has told me she doesn't understand. Even as a teen, I had zero dating interest. My husband was the exception. I loved him. I was best friends with him. We were compatible in every way, and we found a relationship that worked for the two of us and gave us a life better than we had planned on. My interest in dating has not sparked now in my 32nds and widowed. I have pleaded with my sister to understand, to know that I am living the life I want to live and that I am not some broken-hearted shell who has paused my life. It seemed as though she accepted it. She announced her engagement months ago, sent invites for her February wedding in December, and she and her fiance left a note that they would cover the cost of the hotel for me because they are aware I am now a single mom, and that leaving my 3 kids with my IOs covers some expense, but not all. So I RSVP'd yes. Then over Christmas, my brother told me my sister has rounded up many single men to invite to the wedding, and she has recruited some people to help her play matchmaker for me at her wedding. He said it was why she paid for the hotel for me and everything. I was not happy. Her friend she recruited to help confirmed it to me. She said my sister has been wanting to find me the perfect man and has planned it all. I was so done at this point that I called my sister, told her I knew what she was up to and I would no longer be attending her wedding, and I was not going to trust her again. She got so upset and told me I was overreacting. My parents also chimed in and told me the same. They said I could just ignore her plan and attend and support my sister. My sister keeps telling me I need to come, and then she got mad saying she's trying to save me from myself. The controversy is rumbling almost a week after I told her. AITA for borrowing my husband's underwear. So I'm about 7 minutes 8 months pregnant, and while I've thankfully not gained a lot of weight, my belly has grown a lot and I find that most of my underwear is too small and cuts into my sides, bottom of my belly. After a while, I started getting a rash in the places where it was too tight due to friction, I guess. So one day I was getting dressed and I was getting frustrated about the rash and the underwear being too small, so I figured I'd try on a pair of my husband's boxers. They're size L and too big for me, but OMG, it was the most comfortable thing I've ever tried on in my life. Breezy and loose, and even the places where I had the rash didn't hurt. My husband had already left for work for the day, so I decided to just borrow them. At the end of the day, we both come home and I tell him that I borrowed his underwear and asked if it was okay to continue borrowing some until the baby comes, or at least until the rash is better. He seemed a bit weirded out but said it was okay. Fast forward a few days and we're going to bed and he flips out at me and asks me why I'm wearing his Good Bamboo underwear. I'm confused, but he points at the band where it says Bamboo. Then he goes on a long rant about how his few pairs of bamboo underwear are the comfiest and best quality, etc., etc. I apologized and said I just picked the pair off the top just like I did the other times, but he was upset and said I wasn't allowed to borrow his underwear anymore. I said I wouldn't borrow the ones that said bamboo on them since it bothered him, but he just drew a hard line saying I should go buy bigger underwear for myself and stop stealing his. Now, I'm thinking this is probably more about how he actually doesn't want me to borrow his underwear, and he's using me accidentally taking the wrong pair as an excuse, but I'm not sure. While I can understand not wanting to share your underwear, I also think it's unnecessary to go out and buy a bunch of large pairs of women's underwear that will be used for maybe 2 months at most. I also think it shouldn't be that big of a deal since I'm the one who washes and folds his underwear anyway, and he has about 100 pairs, so it's not like he'll run out of them. And I also kind of feel like since I work full-time, buy all groceries, cook and clean on top of carrying our baby, him having to lend me his underwear is a small price to pay to help out with the pregnancy. I also bought him 8 more pairs of bamboo underwear as an apology, but he still doesn't seem to want to share his regular pairs with me. Maybe I should have been petty and bought them for myself instead. So anyway, Reddit, AITA for thinking my husband should let me borrow his underwear. Or am I just entitled? AITA for refusing to leave Walmart past closing time. Last night, I was checking out my items from Walmart and it was past closing. An employee told me that they were closed and I can't check out anymore. I told her I'm checking out and almost done. She went and got a cop from outside and had me trespassed. The cop seemed clueless and acted like a newbie. Nonetheless, the cop arrested me without hesitation and I spent 12 hours in jail with a $1,000 bond. My family has no idea where I was until I got my phone call 5 hours later. They thought I had gone missing and even called the police to search for me. I would have been there until the afternoon if they hadn't paid the bond. Before some assume, I was not aggressive or rude at all nor contributed to any escalation other than telling the employee I would leave once I'm done. For context, I live in Florida. My mother has cancer and I drove her 2+ hours to a hospital that would treat her. At night she got hungry and asked if I would make a quick trip to Walmart to get her something to eat. I hadn't eaten anything the entire day taking care of her, so I agreed. She was worried sick about me when I didn't return, which put a lot of stress on her. My sister and uncle even drove down 2 hours where I am in the middle of the night to search for me. I think that employee is in the wrong for having me callously arrested just because she wanted to leave 1 minute earlier, but others are saying they were in their right to do so. AITA for wearing my engagement ring when I knew my stepsister was getting engaged. I got engaged at the beginning of December. For Christmas, I was staying with my mom and stepdad, and they were hosting my stepdad's whole family for a New Year's party. Prior to this, my stepsister Rachel's fiance Matt informed my parents that he was going to propose and asked if it would be okay to do it at the party, and my parents agreed. For the party, everyone was dressing up, and obviously I was wearing my engagement ring. Everybody already knew I was engaged, but it was the first time they'd seen the ring in person, so at the start of the party, everyone was interested in seeing it. I did notice Matt was being a bit cold with me, but I thought it was nerves. The proposal happened and it was beautiful. Everyone congratulated Rachel, but it was kind of a 50/50 on people wanting to look at and compliment her ring and mine. A lot of comparisons were made, nothing unkind, and everyone was really happy for Rachel, as was I. The day after, Rachel and Matt blew up about me wearing my ring to the party. Rachel said I was deliberately trying to draw attention to myself on her special night, and that since I knew beforehand she was getting engaged I shouldn't have worn my ring, since I don't always wear it anyway. I don't really agree with this, since I've been engaged for weeks, and everyone already knew about it. It's not like I stole her thunder, nor did I intend to by wearing my ring. I wore it because I'm engaged, so it's what you do. Matt then accused me of embarrassing by wearing my colossally large ring when I knew Rachel's wouldn't be anywhere near as big, and intentionally showing him up in front of the family. He even went on about the other jewelry I wore. My step had called them both stupid for their outburst. My stepbrother says there's no way I could have known that's how they feel. It's not like they asked me not to wear it. My mom says while she knows I didn't do it deliberately, she can see where Rachel is coming from since everyone preferred my ring to hers. She also said that given that my ring is quite unique, I should have considered it would draw attention. AITA by telling my brother's GF to stop showering at my house. Money's super tight, and she takes 30+ minute long showers. I'm the one that pays the water and electric bills. I told her to go shower at her own house. I'm sick of footing the bill, and now my brother's pissed and not talking to me. She lives with her parents and could shower there for free. I'm pissed. Edit to clarify, my brother lives with me. Pays half rent, no utilities. More info, I took him in to live with me as soon as he graduated away from my parents' house due to neglect, abuse. The idea behind him living with me was for him to be able to save money so he could move out on his own. But then I got sick and I lost my job, and I can't afford what I used to be able to afford. Circumstances have changed in a way I didn't prepare for, and now I feel like I'm screwing him over on our deal because of an issue unrelated to him. The ITA for selling my father's house even though his widow lives there. My father died recently. He had been married to his widow, Penny, for about 7 years before. I was not close with my father. We spoke regularly and enjoyed each other's company, but I can't say either of us knew each other well for many years before his death. When he died, I was surprised to learn that he had left his entire estate to me. He put everything in trust a year before his death, and I am the sole beneficiary. Besides the small sum that he left to Penny, the lawyer said he was advised not to leave her nothing in case she tried to contest it. Everything, including his house, is now mine. My father's lawyers and mine have advised that the will is structured such that it would be near impossible and very expensive to challenge. I don't want my father's money. I don't need it, and given our relationship, I don't feel right using it. However, he obviously wanted me to have it. So I intend to transfer everything over to my daughter, make her the beneficiary of the trust, and she will have that in addition to her own trust fund once she is of age. However, I do not want to keep my father's house. I do not live in the same country as my father, and I do not want to deal with the admin of his possessions. I want the legal business done and to close the book on a very painful chapter and grieve quietly. The trouble is, Penny lives in the house. Penny does not work and was financially dependent on my father, so while the lawyers say she can fight to stay living in the house, she likely can't afford legal counsel. Also, because of her lack of income, she would never be able to maintain the house, which is quite large, so I would then have to keep up the house and grounds while she lived there, which I am not willing to do, both because of the cost and because of the continued involvement with my father's life, which I do not want. I have notified her via the lawyers of the intention to sell the house, which has led to vicious and vitriolic messages from her kids calling me evil and heartless. I understand this is inconvenient for them, but I'm not responsible for what my father decided to do, nor am I responsible for the people or the mess he left behind. I am not doing this to get one over on Penny. I'm just trying to be done with the traumatic part of my life. AITA for moving in with my dad after he and my mother separated. I'm 18 Fahrenheit. I've got a sibling who's a few months old now. My parents separated 9 months ago, for 2 months then got back together and permanently separated 3 months ago. My parents were each other's first relationship, something I've overheard my dad complaining about. A while ago we went through a tough period. My mother got pregnant and 5 months and miscarried. A month later it turned out that my dad had been having an affair. My parents tried to work it out, found out the AP was pregnant, and that was the end of it. When they separated, my dad wanted to make it work, so when my mother said she was moving into Grandma's, Dad asked if I'd live with him, thinking it'd bring Mom home. Mom begged me to go with her. I believed it was best because of school, friends, and I did believe my parents could work through it. They didn't. Dad's new girlfriend and baby moved in, so I guess Mom found out because she texted me. It breaks my heart you picked sides. You could have visited me or even texted, but you haven't. I love you, but you behaved selfishly. I texted back asking if she expected me to move away from friends, family, school. My dad didn't cheat on me, and they could have moved past it because it was only because they were going through a hard time. No response. I think I've been blocked. I didn't text because I haven't been able to pay my phone bill. LITA. I don't think I am. WIBTA for putting a camera in the kitchen without telling my husband. So some strange things have been happening. My husband is complaining about me forgetting things, like loading the dishwasher and not switching it on, or leaving the stove or oven on after cooking, or not putting things back in the fridge. Things I'm 95% sure I remember to do. I'll switch on the boiler for a hot bath, and an hour later it will be off. My husband says he didn't touch it. Then this morning, I came to brush my teeth, and my toothbrush already had toothpaste on it. WTF? Did I come earlier? Did I not brush my teeth last night? That's just plain weird. Now I might be in denial, or have paranoia as an exciting extra, or I just read too much Reddit, but it occurs to me this could also be gaslighting in the old-fashioned sense. I have no reason to suspect my husband of doing anything like that, but like affairs, that's what everyone thinks, isn't it? So I would like to install a camera to reassure myself that it's really me doing these things. Obviously, I can't get permission from my husband without defeating the whole purpose, but I don't want to damage my relationship in the case that all this has nothing to do with him. WIBTA for temporarily invading his privacy to make myself feel better. Edit. It seems like step 1 needs to be checking for carbon monoxide. I'll postpone any other decisions until that's been checked. Thank you everyone for your comments and concern. For those concerned for imminent problems while I get that check, thank you. But if it's a problem at all, it could only be in very low doses. This has been a mild problem for months rather than an acute problem in the last few days. I'm not showing any other symptoms. Husband isn't showing any signs at all. We do have a ceiling-mounted detector that hasn't sounded any alarm. And besides, my bedroom is upstairs. AITA for missing my wife's annual Christmas party because my ex died. My wife and I have been married for 3 years. Ever since we met, I've gone with her to a holiday party hosted by her and her best friend. It's a fairly large party that grows every year. This year I did not attend. My wife is still pretty upset with why I didn't. 2 days before the party I was notified my ex-fiancé had passed. I didn't know the details, but it hit me very hard. To be honest, towards the end of things we didn't have the best relationship, and I'll spare those details. She was an addict and had relapsed, which heavily influenced the ending of our relationship. I went through a lot of grief leaving her in that state. Maybe it hit me because I feel like I didn't do enough to help her. In any case, I was pretty down and did not feel like socializing. I told my wife I was going to skip the party. When I was first notified, I told my wife, to which she said, "I'm sorry, are you okay?" I thought she would understand my reasoning, but she did not. She was quite offended I was bothered enough about my ex that I wouldn't feel up to her party. After the party, she came home and said, "I can't believe you're this upset about some junkie." I was honestly taken back by her cold, callous attitude. My ex was a daughter, a mother, a sister. She was somebody that was messed up from life. I spent the next several days and into Christmas putting on a fake happy face and tried not thinking about my ex. Over the weekend, I had more calls about the details involving her death, which further upset me. My wife, noticing something was off with me, asked if I still loved her, and is that why I'm devastated? She said it's weird how I'm mourning the loss of my ex when I haven't had anything to do with her in years. I explained to my wife she was my first love and I did love her as a person. Last night I told my wife I will be attending my ex's funeral and I'd like for her to come if she wanted. She became angered by that, saying she doesn't want to go near a junkie's funeral because the place will be full of addicts. Which might be partially true, but I think I should be allowed to pay my last respects regardless. She told me if I end up going, we're going to have problems. I don't know what she meant by that, but she threw in my face how this ruined our holiday and again stated she can't believe I missed her party because of my ex. She told me I need to seek professional help because it's not normal for a married man to be upset about his ex dying. I began thinking maybe she's right. I don't know why I'm mourning her loss. I began asking myself if I still had feelings for my ex, but in my head I knew things were done. I wouldn't have married my wife if I felt things weren't finished with a previous relationship. I practically stopped myself from grieving because I guess it shouldn't have mattered to me. I asked my wife if she'd be upset if her ex died. She said that's different because she shares a child with him. AITA for kicking my friend's boyfriend out of my house after my friends planned a New Year's gathering that I can't attend. Alright, so maybe I'm overreacting. But honestly, I've kind of reached a breaking point. I am disabled, full-time wheelchair user, and live in a fairly small college town with a couple friends. My roommates and I are part of a larger friend group of 8 people, and I'd say we're all pretty close. I really love my roommates. They're great, but sometimes a little fake. There's one person in the large friend group, let's call him Chris, who is dating a guy. Let's call him James. I really don't like James for many reasons. Mostly petty ones, to be honest. But another fact, James is vegetarian. That's not a problem in itself, but herein comes the issue. All of us planned on getting dinner on New Year's Eve. Smallish college town. There are 3 main restaurants to choose from that are open in the nearby area. One of them is a steakhouse, one of them is a Thai place, one of them is a sort of hippie plant-based place. James immediately suggests the plant-based one. I give a veto as it's completely inaccessible and give the alternative of ordering takeout from there and bringing it back to my place. But we recently started fostering a cat and one of our other friends is allergic to cats, so that's also a no-go. None of the other friends are able to host a gathering for various reasons, so I suggest we go to the Thai place. It's a nice spot and reasonably accessible. But apparently James and Chris went to the Thai place last week for their anniversary and don't want to go back. I didn't suggest the steakhouse, but of course that is loudly shut down because James is a vegetarian. Long story short, the group did a vote between the hippie place and the Thai place, not even including the steakhouse, and the plant-based place won. I admitted that I was slightly frustrated to my roommates, who said that they can bring food back after. I said that that wasn't the issue, but sure. So New Year's Eve comes and they get back from dinner, and James and Chris also stop by. At this point, it's pretty late and I'm a couple drinks in, and I flat out tell James that I think it's shitty that he suggested, and then subsequently campaign for a place that he knows that I can't go to. He said that it's fair because I suggested the steakhouse, knowing he's a vegetarian. I told him that it's different because he could have at the very least physically been present. He insisted that it's the same, and I asked him to leave the apartment because I was tired of dealing with his bullshit. So he left, and my roommates think I overreacted. Maybe I did. What do y'all think? AITA for kicking out my husband's pregnant sister and making him choose between me and her. My husband doesn't have a job. He takes care of the house chores while I work. His sister came to stay with us a few weeks ago because of a fight she had with her parents. Neither wanted to tell us what happened. I didn't want her here. She isn't in school, doesn't work, doesn't do anything to help with chores, is a spoiled brat, acts entitled, etc. I only agreed to let her stay here for a week. It's been 6 weeks. I honestly can't stand to live with her anymore. She makes a mess everywhere, has parties when me and hubby aren't home, plays music on max volume till 4 a.m. She's rude, breaks stuff, disrespects all my boundaries and house rules. Finances aren't good either with the extra expenses. Last night I sat them down and told them that she needs to leave in a week because I'm done. I haven't had a real night's sleep in 6 weeks. The apartment is a mess because my husband can't keep up with the mess she makes and I'm reaching rock bottom with the expense eyes. He asked if I would let her stay if she would get a job and I said yes. That would mean she won't have the energy to stay up till 4 a.m. and make a mess, and she will also contribute financially. She ran out screaming that she isn't getting a job and I'm a bitch. I called MIL and asked her again why they had a fight. She's pregnant. Baby daddy disappeared into the night when he heard the news. She expected her parents to provide and they said no, so she came here. I told my husband and he was shocked but said we can't kick her out now. I said yes we can and we are. I will not be financially responsible for her anymore. I will not be financially responsible for her child. I will not have a child in my home. I strongly dislike kids. I don't need the noise, the mess, the smell, the extra expenses. Hubby said he understands that I don't want any of this, but we can't kick her out because she has nowhere to go since his parents won't let her move back home. I simply said either she goes or I go. I'm sick of him enabling her behavior. He always makes excuses for her. He bends backwards for her. Well, I'm not going to. She is an adult. She isn't in school. She doesn't work. She wants to have a baby. Okay, then she needs to grow up and provide for herself. She isn't disabled, sick, mentally incapacitated, or anything else that would stop her from working. She just doesn't want to work. Her parents spoiled too much when she was younger and now she thinks the world revolves around her. My friends and my in-laws agree with me, but my parents say I'm tough for kicking out a pregnant girl and making my husband choose between me and her. I'm not changing my decision no matter what. If she's not out in a week, I will be. But I'm curious if I'm tough. AITA for reprimanding my son about kissing his ex's brother. I honestly can't even believe that this is happening. I have a son who used to date his childhood best friend. Honestly, they were such a cute couple and I was sure they'd get married one day, but unfortunately they've broken up before they went to college. I was so heartbroken for them. However, me and his ex-GF still kept being in contact and I was deep down hoping they'd get back together once they finished with their studies, as she still seemed to be in love with him. But all my hopes went crashing down when his ex called to tell me sobbing that she witnessed my son making out with her shirtless brother. I honestly thought she was joking at first. This couldn't be real. My son used to hate her brother while they were kids, and the feeling was mutual. Not to mention that my son never expressed interest in men before. He's always been attracted exclusively to women. I called my son to talk about this, but he was just mad that his ex outed him to me when it was none of her business. But I asked him how could he do this to her when she really loved him and still does, and he goes and sleeps with her own brother behind her back. He just told me that he doesn't owe her anything anymore as they're broken up and that he's tired of me trying to pressure him to get back together with her just to be my perfect little couple I always dreamt of. He said he finally found true love, regardless of how imperfect I or anyone else may think it is. I was shocked by my son's behavior. I never tried to force anyone onto him. I just wanted him to be happy. Also, he and that boy couldn't even tolerate each other when they were kids, teens. How am I supposed to believe that they went from that to true love? I feel like that boy is just manipulating my son's confusion phase so he can get free sex out of him. But my son didn't want to hear me out and just hang up and then even blocked me. I now can't reach him and I wonder if I messed up and shouldn't have said all of these things about the guy he's currently infatuated with. AITA arroging over a joke about our wedding. My fiance and I are currently planning our wedding. He wants to send out cards to his groomsmen saying game over, she won. I told him that I wasn't comfortable with that being sent out as it implied that his life is over now that we are getting married, and that he lost. He told me that it's funny because it's ironic and his friends know that he doesn't actually feel that way, and he says I'm overreacting and it's just a joke. It ended up turning into a huge argument and he accused me of holding on to negative things too much and that he's worried about my mental health. Am I overreacting? Is it just a funny joke? Update, I was not expecting to get so much feedback on this. Thank you so much for all your comments and advice. When we both got home from work, we sat down and talked and I explained that just because it wasn't a big deal to him didn't mean it wasn't to me. He agreed and apologized for being such an asshole. We also discussed that expressing concern for anyone's mental health during an argument is not okay and that if there are concerns they can be discussed at a different time. We are going to keep an open dialogue around this to try to make sure we don't end up having the same arguments over and over again. I will say this argument happened after getting home from spending the weekend with his mother and her family and we were both exhausted and weren't in the best condition to be fair to each other. To everyone who commented that their show has no issues with the joke, that's great, and I'm happy that you have the same sense of humor and that it works for you. Not even has to find all jokes to be funny or be okay with them. AITA for snapping at my sister and telling her that her opinion on what my wife and I name our children will never be welcome. My wife and I welcomed our son into the world in November. We did not tell anyone his name before he was born, and he was 3 days old before we formally announced it because we decided to meet our son and feel out the name we chose first. Once we knew for sure our feelings were the same as they had been while my wife was pregnant, we announced the name. The name is very different from my family's very conventional and classic, old-fashioned naming style. The family has always followed somewhat of a pattern. For example, my mom's family have Elizabeth, Bernadette, Patricia, Nigel, Kenneth, and Gerald. Then my siblings and I are Charles, Kenneth, Patrick, Elizabeth, and Florence. The name Elizabeth appears multiple times in our family, same for Patrick and Kenneth. Through cousins and in more extended family, everyone in my family is very fond of traditional names and names that are more old man, old lady sounding. I have always hated it. I despise my name, always considered changing it, but when I talked about it as a teenager, I was told I would thank them when I was in my 30 seconds and settled in my life. I'm not 30 yet, but still hate the name. My son's name is Kale. My sister has been seriously outspoken on the name. She said it's not a name, it's wrong to break from the tradition. She asked my wife how she could put son through that when she spent 28 years with a ridiculous name. I stepped in and told her that we did not ask for her opinion. She said giving her opinion is important after seeing what we were going to do to our son and how he'll hate his name in the future. I told her that could be true even with a name like ours, that I still hate mine. That just because they think these are the names the family likes doesn't mean everyone will. She told me she was entitled to give her opinion and response. I told her she was, but it will never be welcome when it comes to what my wife and I name our children. She said I was being an asshole. I told her she was sticking her nose where it wasn't wanted and is not appreciated. AITA for getting mad at my friend for taking a vacation during my birthday. My two friends and I always meet up for our birthdays every year. We exchange presents and do a group activity plus a meal. The birthday girl gets treated to everything. My birthday is at the end of this month. I send a group text to my friends with the restaurant I want to go to and ask if a specific date works for everyone. Sarah said she won't be here, so I asked what about another weekend, and apparently she is going to be away for a few months. She said to just celebrate without her. I felt pretty offended that she would choose to vacation during my birthday. I feel like it is a slight. Plus Sarah has been acting weird and talking to me less for months now. I texted her and asked if everything was okay, and I am a straightforward person, so I told her directly, I feel like you have been avoiding me. Why else would you purposefully go away for my birthday? Sarah immediately got defensive and annoyed. She said I am a hypocrite because I went away for her birthday weekend last year and you didn't hear her complain. Plus I am always a diva when it comes to our other friend's birthday, and overall she needs a break from our friendship because she just doesn't think I have been a good friend. So I am not talking to her now. She has a lot of animosity towards me for no reason. AITA for getting upset she is ditching me on my birthday. Edit, a lot of people are confused. I never skipped her birthday last year. I just was unavailable on her birthday weekend because I was going away on vacation. We celebrated her birthday a month later. AITA for not having the same rules for my son that my stepsister has. I'm 32 meters. My dad's girlfriend Sharon has a daughter Bella. I have a son Andy. I refer to Bella as my stepsister because it's just easier. I don't actually see her that way. My dad and Sharon have been together a few years. She acts like she has authority over me, so I never really tried to build any relationship with her, or Bella just civility. My dad jumped from girlfriend to girlfriend when I was a kid. He always would side with them against me, and if they had kids he expected me to be besties with them even if they were significantly younger, and we had nothing in common. My dad retired and moved hours away when I was in college. I took Andy out by my dad last week for a few days. My wife had work, so stayed home. Andy loves going there because my dad has a big house, lots of land, and toys. Sharon allows Bella an hour of screen time. We don't put strict restrictions on Andy. I mean, he can't sit and play video games all day, but it's day to day and every situation is different. Well, Andy said he was talking about some cartoon or something. Bella said my mom said that's a swear word. Andy looked at me and I said it's not nice to call people that, but it's not a swear word. Later my dad said I was undermining Sharon's parenting. I said just because she tells Bella something doesn't mean I have to agree. Then one of the days we were there it was bad weather, so we couldn't do much outside. Bella wanted Andy to play with her. He found some games my dad had and asked to play them with her. It was like Uno, Trouble, and something else. Bella wanted to play parents with her baby doll. He said no. My dad tried convincing him, but I couldn't and said he doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. Andy and I played a few games of Uno and Trouble. Then I let him use my tablet and watch Netflix because I had to do something for work. Sharon said that's not right. Bella already had her screen time, and now Andy gets unlimited screen time when she can't. He should just play with her instead. I said he doesn't want to play dolls and she doesn't want to play a game. She said there's nothing wrong with a boy playing dolls. I said correct, and there's nothing wrong with a girl playing games, but she doesn't want to do that. She rolled her eyes and walked away. Bella had to go to bed at 8, and I let Andy stay up till 9:30. There was just little stuff like this. My dad said usually when you're staying at someone's house and they have a kid, the rules for the kids are the same. I told my wife. She said she gets it because of my childhood, but I shouldn't take that out on Bella and Sharon. They didn't do anything. I think I was preventing what happened to me from happening to Andy, which is also why I don't let him visit my dad without me. AITA for not just giving Andy the same rules as Bella. AITA for eating near my coworker who has autism. So at the store I work at, we just hired a girl about a month ago. So far she's done nothing but sit in our break room and work through the absolute monstrosity that is our onboarding training. She still has about a week or two left in it as well, so she's temporarily stuck in the back all day. About 2 weeks ago, my manager pulled me aside and told me that Anna had complained about me. She said Anna told her the crinkling of my bag of chips I was eating in the break room was distracting her, and since she's autistic, she can't have distractions like that, otherwise she won't get anything done that she needs to. She also requested that we all stay out of the break room while she's in there so she can focus. My manager told her that she would mention it to me, but that she won't make the break room off limits so she can concentrate. She also told her that in the future, she would prefer if we talked it out ourselves and not involve her in issues we may have with each other. So she brought it up with me and just told me to keep it in mind if I choose to go back there. So the other day, I went back and I could tell immediately that Anna was upset. She glared at me the minute I walked into the room, and she kept huffing and puffing every time she heard my footsteps. Our break room is fairly large, and I was on the opposite side of it. But I'm assuming based on her actions, she still could hear me. I spent all of maybe 10 minutes back there, but at that point I felt too bad to stay because I didn't want to disrupt her. It started to get on my nerves a bit as well. This went on for a few days, until finally the day before yesterday I confronted her about it. I apologized for bothering her, but told her that I would continue coming back here if I needed to, and if I ever get too loud to just let me know instead of glaring at me in silence. I let her know that this space is for all employees, and while we can definitely try to be quiet, sometimes noises happen. She got all sulky and basically just said she wouldn't be made to feel bad about her autism. She didn't say anything else, but anytime she saw me over the next 2 days, she refused to say anything. Just glared at me. I'm really not sure where to go from here. Part of me feels terrible because I don't know how difficult it is to have autism and enter a new job where you don't know anyone. But part of me is also very annoyed because Anna is a grown woman older than I am and has had many jobs in the past similar to the one we have now. Everyone I've talked to about this, including my best friend who also has autism, has told me I handled the situation about as well as I possibly could have. But I still feel guilty, at least somewhat. AITA for asking my brother to share his daughter's inheritance with my stepdaughter. My cousin Laura passed last year, which was devastating for our whole family. There is now some conflict with the inheritance. Laura's will left everything to her husband and future children. But if not, a third would go to her parents and a third to charity. The final third to be divided between 6 nibblings, accessible when they turn 18. Me and my brother are her only cousins from her mom's side, but from her dad she is 9. From all of us, there are a total of 7 kids, including my brother's daughter and my stepdaughter. Me and my SD were hurt when we realized my SD wasn't a part of this third. Recently, I brought up to my brother that he should share niece's inheritance with SD. I said it's more fair this way and would lower resentment between the kids later on. My niece is only 5 compared to my SD who's 16, so it would be more useful for her in the near future. Also, I'm not saying it has to be half and half, but just a portion for SD. My brother didn't take this well and went off, saying the money is for his daughter and we're being greedy, but I got upset and said no one in this family really cares about SD and are more focused on blood ties. He's pissed at me, but some other people who know what happened is on my side. AITA for canceling Christmas on my family after they kept pestering me about my fiance's finances. I apologize if the title is misleading. I really didn't know how to word it. I met my now fiance in early 2019 before the pandemic really hit on a trip I took to Mexico. We hit a tee off really quick, and he asked me to relocate to his home country before the travel restrictions took effect. I've been living outside the US ever since. I haven't been able to come back to visit until recently. My family consists of my mother, father, 3 siblings and their spouses, and 12 nieces, nephews. My family grew up lower middle class, whereas my fiance grew up wealthy. My fiance proposed to me in July, and we decided to visit my family for Christmas since he has never physically met them. My fiance went all on Christmas gifts for everyone as a celebration of our upcoming nuptials. My family didn't know he had done this. Fast forward to the Sunday before Christmas. We were at my sister's house for our weekly family dinner. From the moment we walked in the door, my family started making not so subtle comments about all the nice things they wanted for Christmas. Think designer merchandise or expensive toys. My one sister and Bill was even showing us homes that I knew they'd never be able to afford without help. I finally lost my temper when someone commented how they'd love for Santa to bring them a new Escalade for Christmas since their current car is too small for their family. I shouted that my fiance isn't their own personal ATM and how rude it was to expect someone they just met to drop so much money on them. I was called a lot of different things, some of the nicer ones being selfish, entitled, and a gold digger. We ended up leaving my sister's house and returned home for the holidays. We either returned or regifted everything my fiance bought for everyone. My family has been blowing up my Messenger and Snap about how they were just joking and my lack of humor ruined Christmas for the kids. I haven't responded to any of them. My fiance understands why I was upset, but said he's used to people acting like that around him. He thinks we should have everyone the gifts and tough on them if they didn't appreciate the effort. AITA for not giving up my chair. My mom and I were baking a pie for my birthday all morning while her husband napped. Afterwards, we decided to play a card game while the pie was in the oven. We begin playing when Dennis finished his nap and asks if he can join. We say yes, of course, and wait for him to sit down to play. As he's getting ready to play, he comments about how I'm sitting in the boss chair of the chair at the end of the table and his usual spot. I jokingly reply that I'm a boss too, but it was apparently not taken as a joke. I don't get up because at this point I honestly thought he was playfully giving me a hard time, but he continues to make comments about how it's his chair, and he wants to sit there, but it got to the point where he raises his voice and becomes adamant that I get up from his chair so he can sit there. There are 4 other empty chairs at the table, but he wants the one I'm sitting in. I ask him, "Are you serious?" multiple times because I found it quite childish and petty that he demand I move from the chair I'm sitting in just because he wanted to sit in that particular chair. At this point I obviously know he was never joking, but it seems like he wants to assert his dominance over me. I'm not a dog he can kick off the couch so you can sit there. I'm a human being. I don't play games like that, so I got up and left without a word. Here's where I think I might be tall. I've been having relationships issues of my own and I'm staying with my mom and Dennis until things get better. They have opened their home to me and I'm wondering if I overstepped my welcome with the chair thing. Thank you in advance. WIBTA if I refuse to let a friend move in due to their other friendships. Academic year 2019 to 2020, whilst doing my master's degree, I lived in a flat where I was viciously bullied and gaslit. It put me in an extremely dark place mentally, and I am still in therapy due to this. It was mostly a group of 3, Jade, Aaron, and Ben. I moved into the flat alongside a close friend. Jane did join in with some of the bullying and did absolutely nothing to stop the rest. She is also somewhat romantically involved with Ben and are a bit codependent. She has never apologized and often ignores my boundary if I don't want to know about them or have anything to do with them. Jane is on the autistic spectrum, which is why I don't hold it against her as much as she doesn't fully understand. I have just tried my best to avoid situations where I know she may have also invited my bullies. The few times I have seen them, they have been foul. From that nasty giggling behind your back stuff and at things you say to mocking my accent and implying I have an eating disorder, etc. Considering their age, it is pathetic. We all still live in the same city, sadly. There is a housing crisis in the UK right now, and it is especially bad in my city. I am lucky and live with 2 others in a pretty flat in a nice neighborhood for far below market value. 25F is moving out. We are now looking for a replacement and have been flooded with requests including from Jane. I don't want to live with Jane as my flat as my home and I want to feel safe here, not worried about coming home to find people who made my life hell sad in my kitchen. However, I am aware Jane cannot afford a higher rent than this and her overprotective parents won't allow her to live in a less expensive neighborhood. Meaning if she doesn't move in with us, she would have to continue living with her parents and commuting. I know living with her parents would be bad for her mental health as they treat her like a child still. All factors considered, would I be an asshole if I told Jane she couldn't move in due to her close friendship with people who I feel deeply uncomfortable with and quite frankly scared of? AITA for telling my mother-in-law she is a nightmare and does not help with her pestering. I married my husband Logan 6 years ago. He was a widower with 2 children, Luca now 16 and Milo now 15. His first wife died when the boys were 5 and 6 years old and we met a year later, became friends and more after several months of friendship. I get along fine with my stepsons, but they never wanted me to act motherly toward them, which I was fine with. I had hoped we would build up a friendship and maybe a close bond that was different to their parents but still special. Ever since my husband and I married, though, his parents have been making it clear that I need to embrace my role as the boy's mom. Logan told them to knock it off and around him they did. But occasionally I would get a comment about how the boys do not act like they are close to me and how I don't act like a mother should. It was bothersome, but I did my best to ignore it. Over time, it started to weigh on me that my relationship with the boys remained distant. We get along fine, as I said, but that's about it. They are very close to their dad, and I'm glad. They don't give me trouble. I just feel on the outside with them. Having the comments from my in-laws were not helping either. It felt like I couldn't do anything right. The boys didn't want me to act as a mom, so I remained just a support in their lives. But that meant my in-laws saw me as not being a good addition to their grandsons' lives. but I never wanted to be the jerk step-parent who forced myself on them either. I do not believe that is the way to go. When I got pregnant, it only got worse. My emotions were a little more all over the place, and it hurt more to have that distant but polite relationship with the boys. Then knowing my in-laws were likely watching every move I made during my pregnancy to see if I was favoring the baby over the boys, I ended up confiding in my mom about it. I just let go, and she was a great support. When I had my son, she would come over to offer support with my husband back at work. My mother-in-law stopped by while Mom was here. She came to bring up the fact Luca and Milo had rejected her offer to get me a mother necklace for Christmas with photos of them and my son, telling her I was not their mom. She told me the fact the boys feel that way is shocking and they need me to do better. My mom told her it was time to leave and that the conversation was over. She told her to stay out of it. She told me I owe it to her grandsons to not make them feel like they have no mom. I was so desperate that I told her they don't want another mom. They never wanted me like that, and she and her husband were driving me to the brink with all the comments about me not doing a good job. I asked why she was such a nightmare and added she was not helping me or them. This was before Christmas. She is still furious. Logan decided we needed a timeout from them, but his mom said I blew up at her for no good reason. I feel bad. AITA for not watching my nieces and nephews during New Year's dinner. So my husband and I went over to my Sil for New Year's dinner. There were about 20 people over for dinner, half of whom were children. We are the only couple there that have no children. When it came time for dinner, the smaller children ate first, and then they slowly made their way to the living room to go play so that the adults could eat. When it came down to the adults' turn and everyone went to sit, my husband and I were told that there was not enough room at the table, so to sit in the living room to eat just us two. Ouch, but whatever. This isn't new behavior from them. This brings me to where I'm wondering if I might be in the wrong. When the kids were playing, they got into an argument. It wasn't that big of a deal, and I was eating. I figured I'd let it play out to see if it resolved itself, but one of the kids went running to the kitchen to cry to their parent and causing a disruption. Others still got up from the kitchen to come talk to her kid and gave me a stank eye. So, AITA for not stopping an argument between my nieces and nephews in the living room while I was having my dinner that led to the main dinner party being interrupted. AITA for ordering takeout instead of cooking the dinner my wife planned. I work full-time in a physically demanding job, and my wife works part-time, so she cooks dinner most nights. I do cook as well. On weekends, I'll do breakfast and dinner. If I manage to get home early on weeknights, like before 6:30, I'll cook. I do clean up on nights I don't cook, so I am pulling my weight in the kitchen. I'll even cook her favorite meals half the time, so it's not like her wants and needs get ignored. Yesterday afternoon, my wife texted me to tell me she wasn't feeling well, and she wasn't up for cooking and asked if I could handle dinner. Told her no problem. I wound up getting off much later than I anticipated and didn't want to cook either, so I tried calling her to see if she was alright with me picking up something on the way home. She didn't answer, so I thought to hell with it and swung by this really nice Italian restaurant we go to sometimes. I got the dish she always gets and a dessert for her and brought it home. Plated it for her and brought it up to her. She asked where the stuff she got out to cook was, and I told her after 14 hours moving heaving crap. And on my feet I wasn't up to cooking either, so I brought home this instead. She had really wanted what she planned for that night and was pretty upset, saying how if I was going to flake on cooking then I shouldn't have said I'd handle dinner when she asked. She wound up not eating what I brought her and made the dinner she had planned at 9 at night. She was still sore about it this morning. AITA for refusing to take in a foster child. My husband and I have 2 kids. Both left for college and one is in law school now, so we are empty nesters. I love it. I get to go wherever, whenever. Right now I'm skiing a lot and we take lots of vacations. I'm planning on retiring in a few years. We invested smartly and now our home is paid off and my kids are getting a full ride in school. We can retire without much worry, although we will still work until the economy is better and our bodies allow us to. Problem is my husband is now bored and wants to foster a child. I am absolutely against the idea. My cousin did foster a child for 3 years. She is infertile and decided she wanted to foster as a way to have a child in her life. But that child was a complete nightmare and almost made her and her husband divorce over it because it caused so many issues. I know not all foster children are like that, but my cousin is far more compassionate than me and she was crying to me and my sister every day about it. And I don't want to do it. It's hard to tell what a child has gone through, and it's usually nothing good if they need to be fostered. I don't have the energy to deal with it anymore. I raised my son and daughter, and unless they need me, I'm going to finish my last years at work and then retire and enjoy my quiet years. My husband constantly badgers me to reconsider, and I've told him I'm not going to. He argues it will be like having a child again, and I told him I don't want that. I told him to find a volunteer position at a school or go down to the children's wing of his hospital if he wants to spend time with children. He also works outside the home while I have a hybrid job, so I feel like any foster child will just become my responsibility. But he's constantly complaining that I'm not being compassionate, and we could change a child's life for the better. But I know it will probably change my life for the worse. Still AITA for refusing to sign up to be a foster. AITA for refusing to drive my wife to work while I am on vacation. My wife and I have been married for 7 years and mostly have a great relationship, but there is a major point of strife with transportation. She does not have a license and has no interest in driving. I did purchase driver training for her twice, and I bought a second car which is now collecting dust. She did not ever agree to practice after lessons and did not want to take the exam because she is too anxious. I suggested she try therapy for driving anxiety given my job provides insurance for this, but she is not interested. This is usually not a problem as I drive our son to daycare and then drop her off. This adds to my commute but is good because we only pay for parking once. About 2x a week I have to work late, which I warn her of 2 weeks in advance. Usually she has her mom or her sister to drive her home on these days. Using this system we have gotten along for the last few years. I am on vacation right now for 2 weeks, which is my first time off since December 2021. I asked her 3 months ago to find some way into work so I could sleep in, let our son sleep in, and be able to do activities with him out of the house. She brushed me off and was non-committal. Fast forward to today, of course she found no other way to work. She did not even look at a bus schedule. She did not ask anyone to drive her. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to drive her. Now I have just enough time to clean, finish laundry, get groceries, feed our son, and then turn around and go back. I have no time to go to the pool with our son, which I told her was my priority today. After I got home, I sent her a very frustrated text saying I can't believe she would do this, and she can find her own way tomorrow. I said don't even bother trying to wake me up because I'm not setting alarm, and I will ignore you. AITA for telling my elderly in-laws who recently suffered a loss that we are divorced. My ex-husband and I are in the midst of our divorce proceedings. I have agreed not to tell mutual friends even though he's pretending we are still together. My in-laws and my family don't know either except for my sister. My in-laws are kind, genuine, and generous people. My ex-husband is an only child. He's 47. We are gay men, but prior to our divorce we were considering surrogacy overseas, which is expensive and could cost us 200 pounds K. My in-laws offered to pitch in. When my sister had her baby, they were incredibly generous and kind, and her daughter as if she's ours. They were really looking forward to us potentially welcoming a child. My mother-in-law, who comes from a small family, has lost her sister as well recently, which has hit them hard. I have attended Christmas dinner with my in-laws for my ex's sake and played the role of the happy couple because he didn't want to cause them stress, but I think there's more to it and that it is about money. They have recently brought up the surrogacy when my mother-in-law called me and I told them we are getting divorced. They are devastated. My ex is livid and says that I am wicked for bothering them with our personal problems, and I was cruel for stressing them out because they are old. I think he's overplaying it, but I haven't spoken to my in-laws since I have told them a week ago. AITA for telling them the truth. AITA for criticizing my parents' Christmas presents in front of the whole family. My wife and I have been married for 10 years and have one daughter, Amy. Amy turns 5 this January. She's a sweet little thing and we love her to pieces. She's our only child, so she gets all our time and attention. Amy does not like girly things. She has made this clear since she was 3. Amy doesn't wear dresses. She doesn't like dolls. She prefers miniature cars to her little oven kit, etc. My parents have always been weirded out by this situation, going as far as accusing us of imposing our urban parenting on an innocent kid. To be clear, even though we could have raised Amy in a gender-neutral fashion, we didn't. She ended up preferring boyish clothes and toys despite us having gone the traditional route, and we were more than happy to comply because honestly, who the fuck cares? It's always been a contentious issue, but it's also always been very clear. She's always been very clear. She directly told her grandparents on multiple occasions that she hated dresses and dolls. Come Christmas Eve, a week ago, Amy opens her presents and what have you, a pink dress and a huge Barbie doll with a makeover kit. She had asked for an astronaut figurine. The poor little thing acted all excited and thanked her grandparents, but when she was on her own as her mom put her to sleep, she pouted and asked if they couldn't find the astronaut at the store. I thought this was a deranged thing to do, and when she was finally asleep, although I didn't lose my cool, I didn't hold back and told both my parents that going against a 4-year-old's wishes to score some kind of twisted political point was insane, and that they both should either change or have their granddaughter resent them down the line. They acted like they had no idea what I was talking about and that I was reading into it. Look at how excited she was, they said. So I had to double down as I felt they were trying to gaslight me. We argued for around 10 minutes. Nothing got too heated, but things got visibly tense. As we went back home the next day, my wife said she thought I was overreacting. She agrees with me 100%, but she thinks I should have had that discussion in private, not in front of the entire extended family. She thinks it's airing out dirty laundry in front of everyone. I think my parents were the one who instigated the situation by 1, getting Amy these ridiculous gifts, and 2, acting like this wasn't done on purpose. AITA for not watching my language in front of my niece. I have a brother who has 1 kid, Angela. Angela is autistic and very into drawing and art in general. She's really hard to have a conversation with unless you are talking about pens or markers, or Photoshop, but she's pretty cool all things considered since she related to my lame little brother. Dude is a total buzzkill ever since high school. I'd party in college and he'd tell my parents when I came home drunk. So anyway, I am a bona fide Disney adult. I love everything about. Not sure why, but I think the parks are really fun and I love just down the street from them. Angela knows this, and for my birthday December she made me a gift. My brother prefaced it as really darn weird and said I needed to pretend to like it. I was fully prepared for a weird fetish art or something based on the unflattering description. I opened it and it was a print of this fucking insane space battle with Buzz Lightyear looking photorealistic fighting Zurg. I said, holy fucking shit, this is fucking rad. Holy shit, thanks so much. I gotta put this son of a bitch on my wall. I know it was that because Angela has repeated my praise to my brother about a dozen times and once to her friends. Brother is embarrassed and I am too. He called me an off for not watching my mouth and embarrassing him. I do agree it should have watched what I said, but I really did love the picture. And it's literally sitting in my living room right now. He should at least take partial blame for being rude about his kids' art. AITA for refusing to let roommate's friend into the room when she's not there. We live on campus and my roommate of this year, Leela, is the best one I had the pleasure of living with so far. There's just one thing, she keeps some of her friends' food supplies in our room since theirs is cramped and there's no space. So, her two friends have been going in and out of our room frequently. At first, they would always knock before going in and say hi. But over time, I told them it's fine if they don't knock and they're welcome to go in anytime. 2 weeks ago though, this girl, moved in with them and I don't like her one bit. She didn't really do anything outrageously wrong, but the way she feels entitled to just barge into the room when we're practically strangers and not even talk to me got on my nerves. Plus, she woke me up several times with how violently she opens the door. So I told Leela that when I initially agreed to her friends coming in, I wasn't expecting such a big number and that the way the door is being opened would jolt me awake. She was good about it and said she'll ask them to knock from now on. She only knocked for 2 days before she suddenly barged in again yesterday, searched around for what she needed, then walked out without so much as looking at me. So I got up and locked the door. When Z came later, she was forced to knock and I only opened the door to a slit and told her I'm sorry Leela isn't in the room. She said she just wanted to grab something, but I told her I'm sorry the only reason I've been letting them go in is because of Leela on the condition that they knock. But since she wouldn't, she would have to go through Leela from now on. She got mad and said she's not here to see my pretty face, but because she was hungry and that the room is not just mine. I didn't want to debate this with her, so I closed the door and locked it again. When Leela came back, I thought she'd be on my side, but she actually told me I should have talked to her first and not do this directly to her friend. She said Z wasn't required to greet me, but that she'll talk to her again about the knocking. I told her she wasn't hearing me, that Z is no longer welcome with or without knocking unless she's there. She said I was being unreasonable and we'll talk again. Well, we haven't since then and none of her friends came by again. Am I the here? AITA for having a tent full of toys and books in the living room when my nieces and nephews aren't allowed to use it. My husband and I have 4 kids and we've been fostering Emily for almost a year. Emily has special needs. She gets overwhelmed easily and when she gets overwhelmed she hides. Emily is also very small and a master at getting herself into tight spaces, so when she hides it can take forever to find her. She'll also lock the door of the room that she's hiding and then hide to make it that much harder to get to her. We bought her a tent shortly after she moved in with us. We let her pick out everything in the tent from the mat on the floor to the toys and books inside, and we got her to go to her tent whenever she gets overwhelmed or feels like she has to hide. Nobody is allowed in that tent without Emily's permission. We have the tent in a corner in the living room. It's one of the few places where she can't lock a door, and we can see her in the tent from most places in the house. My family hosted Christmas this year. Before everyone came over, we told Emily to put away whatever toys she didn't want anyone playing with. She put some of her toys in her tent and some in her room and insisted on locking the door. When everyone got here, Emily hid in her tent and started to play with her toys. We explained to the kids that the tent is Emily's special place and that they are not allowed to go inside or use any of the toys inside. The kids were upset, but we had a couple toys for them. Plus, Lucas was willing to share his toys. My siblings approached me multiple times on Christmas and asked why I put something so tempting as a tent full of toys in front of their kids, then say they're not allowed to use it. I explained that the tent prevents Emily from endangering herself and that it has to be there because it's one of the few places where we can see it from most places in the house. When we got Emily out of the tent, some kids tried to go inside and I told them they're not allowed in there even when Emily isn't in the tent. I closed it up and put duct tape on the zipper to prevent the kids from opening it. Some siblings left right after we ate because of the tent, and some stayed but berated me in private for taunting their kids with the tent. My parents agree with my siblings that it was rude and want to host future holidays, so Emily won't have the tent. Was I the asshole for keeping the tent in plain sight when there were kids that would want to use it? WIBTA for refusing to rent to my daughter. I am 66 years old. My husband and I are retired. We own 2 homes on the same street. One is our residence and the other is a rental home. When my daughter married, she expressed interest in living in our rental. We agreed that her family would move into the home and rent until we passed. Then the home would become hers. This sounded like a great plan because she would be near to help us in our age, and we'd get to see our grandchildren. The only problem is, I hate her husband. He's nice enough, but has never been the type I envisioned for my daughter. And last year, my daughter came to me in paces. It turns out he had been having an affair. They went to counseling, and she says that they have made great improvements to their marriage, but I don't buy it. They have been anticipating moving to our rental house, so this weekend I talked to my daughter and told her how I felt. I told her I was thinking of taking back my offer just because I find the idea of living close to her husband to be stressful. She blew up on me and told me I was going back on a promise and punishing her and her children for the actions of her husband. My husband thinks I am being too harsh. WIBTA for taking back my offer of this home. Edit. Some additional info. My daughter and her family do have a home. They are not in danger of being homeless. This agreement was made a couple years ago and was something we were gradually working towards. We do have another daughter that we rent another one of our homes to, which is another reason my daughter claims I am acting unfairly, that I will rent to her sister but not her. AITA for kicking my fiance out while I breastfed our baby and making his mother tell him off. My fiance and I ended our engagement early on in my pregnancy, but we got back together a week before our baby was born. Our daughter is 3 weeks old and I don't like breastfeeding in front of people as I'm self-conscious, but I used to let my fiance stay in the same room. A few days ago, though, I kicked him out and banned him from being in the same room as me while I fed our daughter because he made a comment about how my boobs were a lot bigger now. I don't think he said it to be nasty, and he did say it was just an observation, but it made me feel insecure since I haven't been naked in front of anybody, even him, since my body has changed, so I got upset with him, hence the ban. I told his parents what happened after they assumed I was making him leave the room because I wanted him to keep them company while I fed our daughter. His mother was very angry at him and she told him off. Now, he's upset with me and keeps insisting I'm making a big deal out of nothing because it was a compliment since he likes my boobs. AITA for refusing to give my friend food. This happened on December 29. I'm still in school graduating this year, and so I only live off of monthly student loans as I haven't been able to land any jobs yet. This rounds to roughly $700 for all my expenses, rent, groceries, prescriptions, you get the gist. My friend works full-time and makes 4 times as much as I get in student loans. She comes around to visit. We wanted to play some games and just chat. At about 3 in the afternoon and upon entering my flat, she exclaims, "Look, I haven't eaten out all day. I'm sure you got some food for me. I'm so hungry." I apologized to her and explained that it's the end of the month. I already spend a lot of money over the holidays and could only afford to feed myself for the rest of the month. I didn't have any food to spare. A look into my fridge would have told the story by itself. The look on her face, though was not what I had hoped for. She got really angry with me and called me a cheapskate. After some arguing, she simply left and said she'd just go to McDonald's then. A bit later, I texted her and apologized again, asking if she would want to go out for a coffee next year. I could cover her then. She was still mad and kept calling me cheap and a bad friend for not letting her have pretty much my last bread. Was I in the wrong for this? AITA for not wanting my brothers to move in with me. I have 5 brothers, 31, 25, 15, 12, 6. I went to uni, got my degree and moved back in with my mom for a year after graduating before moving out when I was 22, which was 7.5 years ago. My older brother lives with my mom and has 2 kids, can't hold a job due to heavy drinking problems, and has a really toxic relationship with the mothers of his 2 children. He uses that as an excuse to continue self-destructive drinking. Younger brother has a 2-year degree after attending college for 6 years, has quit more jobs than I've had, has a severe dependency on smoking pot, and refuses to work full-time. My mother is trying her best to provide, but she's struggling. I help with my younger brothers as I'm able, but it's only a band-aid. She wants to put my older and younger brother out, but doesn't want them to be homeless. My dad tried to help my older brother, but quickly gave up due to his drinking problem. They refuse to check into programs, and now my name is coming up in arguments as a way out, and I refuse to let them move in with me. AITA for not wanting to support them. I feel bad for my mom, but I don't really have the space or mental fortitude for them. Not that she does either. They are upset at me for turning my back on them, but I feel like they shouldn't be anyone's responsibility, let alone mine. AITA for refusing to take care of my grandchildren on a trip my son paid for me. I have 1 son and 2 grandchildren. I take care of them 2 divided by 3x a week for 3 divided by 4h a day. I don't mind taking care of them, but it's exhausting. At the beginning of November, my son invited me to go with him, his wife, children, and in-laws to travel from the 15 to the 22 of December. I asked how much this trip was and it wasn't cheap, so I said I didn't want it because it wasn't something I wanted to spend at that moment. He offered to pay as a gift and I decided to accept on the condition that I would not babysit my grandchildren at any time, and this would be my vacation. He agreed. In a few space conversations, I asked why they didn't leave the children with my ex-husband during this period, as it is a very adult and romantic city. They said they wanted a family trip. BTW, my ex-husband loves his grandkids and they spent almost 3 weeks at his house once. He didn't go on the trip for other reasons. On the trip, I wasn't very proactive in taking care of my grandchildren. Honestly, apart from a few well-spaced moments, my son, wife, his ILs took care of the kids. I obviously spent time with them. This trip, we basically spent the morning and afternoon together. At night, we were free to do whatever we wanted. I took the opportunity to visit some restaurants and hopping. My son and his wife took turns with his in-laws at night with my grandchildren, because most places weren't family friendly. The 6th day, I decided to stay at the hotel, drink some wine, and read a book. My son found out I was staying at the hotel and asked if I could look after them. I declined, saying I had other plans in my room. He started to complain that everyone was helping and taking turns, except me, who didn't help with the whole trip he paid for. I reminded him that it was his choice to bring 2 children in a completely non-family friendly city, and that I said before even accepting his gift that I would not take care of the children because I just want to relax. We ended up arguing and he said, among other things, that I could be a little more grateful for his gift and make this concession for 3 hours for them, and the ILs to have a free night, but that I'm deciding to be I stuck to it, and in doubt he wouldn't respect this, I ducked into the pool area the whole night. Things have been tense ever since, as he said I was an asshole the whole trip. AITA for yelling at my husband because he won't go to the doctor. I showed him some of the comments on this thread and he got really emotional and admitted that the reason he didn't want to go is because he is just too exhausted to even go to the doctor. He asked me if I would help him make an appointment and drive him there, and of course I agreed. I think he needed to hear some perspectives from real people rather than stuff from Google. He cried and apologized and explained that it took everything in him just to go to the store today, but he actually agreed to go and I'm so glad. He said he just really needs help getting it all set up for him. He told me he has been so stressed and he is getting to a point where he's not functional. He slept 17 hours today, so I definitely agree. I told him that the CPAP machines aren't what they used to be, and he said he really didn't care anymore, he just wants to feel better and not to worry. Finally figured out how to edit. Editing because I mistyped my age, and to clarify the age of the baby in case it matters, I am constantly arguing with my husband because he will not go to the doctor for his sleepapnea. It's so fucking bad. We have a baby and his chainsaw snoring is constantly waking her and I both up. She's exclusively breastfed, and every time she wakes up, she wants to eat, so I'm stuck with it. And sleeping in the other room does nothing because it's that loud. I keep begging him to go to the doctor and he refuses because he doesn't want a CPAP machine. He keeps getting mad because I won't get off the subject, and I've explained to him that I'm going to be in a perpetually pissy mood until I can get a good night's sleep. I told him that it's ridiculous I have to deal with it with no choice when he has a choice and just doesn't want to be Darth Vader in his words. So I yelled at him and I told him that snoring is the 3rd leading cause of divorce, to which he replied, great. More statistics. And I told him it's incredibly selfish, not to mention dangerous, and he has a baby to be healthy for now. He pouted for like 10 minutes and then fell asleep again. Am I the asshole because I keep bringing it up to him? AITA for not sharing my room with my partner. So I live in a 3BR app with 2 friends. One of the friends is moving out, so a room is becoming available next month. I offered to my partner if they wanted the room, they get first dibs. They want to live with me but don't want to pay a full room share, i.e. they want to split my room. Now, it's not a very big room. It's pretty much just enough room for my bed, dresser, and desk. Not only is it tight for 2 people in the room together, but there is already no room for more stuff. They suggested that we move my desk into the available room and that becomes my office, and we share my room. The problem with that is now I'm paying for 2 rooms. They offered to pay half my room's rent but can't afford to pay a whole room, so my rent would go up 5x, not double. I can afford to do this, but that I wouldn't be saving any money towards possible home ownership in the future. They are upset that I'm not into sharing the room. For me, it's for financial reasons, but they see it as me not wanting to make sacrifices to be able to live with them. Am I the asshole? AITA for not letting my daughter's bio sibling see her. Me and my girlfriend have taken custody of and all, but adopted my neighbor's kid 3 years ago after she turned 5. She'd shown up at our door asking if she could come eat. We both found it weird, but after months of this, it became standard to have her every day after school and on the weekends. To no one's surprise, we discovered that she was not being taken care of and was more or less the black sheep of the family. Her bio mom is far from poor, and from everything I've seen and heard, her other kids are treated like royalty. I had multiple conversations with her BM about her health, such as having to treat her for lice on multiple occasions and the lack of clean clothes, and this really only made her angry. We tried getting CPS involved, but they didn't do much, and after around a year, her bio mom just told us to keep her. It was technically an informal agreement, and we never went to the courts about it. But as I said earlier, it's been 3 years and there really hasn't been any issues regarding custody or anything like that. Until now, the 2 oldest have recently graduated and been trying to come back into her life. The 18-year-old has discussed getting custody and adopting her. They were not innocent in the treatment that she received while living with her BM, and although they were minors, I still feel like they were old enough to know better. The past 3 years have been the hardest of my life, creating this safe and secure environment for her to grow up in. We've done therapy and it's been a learning experience for all of us, but I feel like we finally have come to a place where things are settled and she's thriving. I don't want them to come around and ruin the progress we have made. My GF agrees and does not want the siblings around either, but a few other family members of mine and her siblings themselves told me I am being too harsh and that I should let them see her. To my knowledge, the mom is not involved in the decision to come back into her life, and it is just the two siblings, but my daughter does not want to see them and I don't feel like she should have to because they suddenly have had a change of heart. So am I the asshole here? Edit, I didn't mention this, but yes, we are moving forward on trying to get full custody of, adopting her. That is the goal. I do genuinely see her as my daughter, and she calls us both her mommies. I cannot imagine life without her in it. I would do anything for her and I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my best. The reason I said the oldest were not innocent was because when she was not here full time, she would often mention the harsh treatment she received from them as well. I know they could have easily been under the influence of the mother's opinions and actions, but it still did damage. AITA for not eating only Chinese food at a potluck. To preface, I'm Indian and I moved abroad for my master's and I met my boyfriend on Hinge and we've been dating for about 8 years. We're both social and have managed to make a few members of our respective friend groups interact due to their mutual interest. And together we're a pretty close-knit group now. Anyway, we went club hopping on Nye and decided it would be really cute if we had a multicultural brunch the next day. And all of this was DoorDash because none of us can cook. The criteria was we bring one main dish, appetizer, and one dessert. Appetizer so none of us cheap out on our contribution and none of us have any allergies, so that wasn't an issue either. There were Italian dishes, Chinese, Ethiopian, French, Vietnamese, American, and 2 different regional Indian dishes. Overall, it slapped. They were all comfort food, nothing fancy. India has Indo-Chinese food which I despise and it's ruined soy sauce for me. My wretch and it triggers bad acidity. I actively avoid a majority of East Asian cuisine, obviously. Anyway, we served ourselves an equal amount of all the dishes and ate. Was sitting next to me and noticed I didn't reach for their dishes. It was Kung Pao chicken and chow mein. I ate every other dish and they saw that. I honed in on this because we were chattering away and I paid attention to nobody's plate but mine. They proceeded to ask me if I'd like some and I declined. They insisted and I declined again, so they asked why. I said I don't eat a lot of East Asian food because it doesn't sit well with me. They then pointed out I had taken the Korean food. Korean food was literally kimbap and hotteok, which passed my caveat, so I said that. So they called me racist. And not jokingly, I apologized and said that's not my intention, it's literally a food intolerance, and I'm allowed to have one. And even if that's not the case, I'm allowed to eat what I want to eat. I dug their heels in and said it was disrespectful, that I won't even try some and I am an asshole for trying to exclude them on New Year's. I joked saying it's not their New Year yet, this pissed them off, and they asked to swap places away from me. The brunch ended on an uncomfortable note and Eodia sent a message on the GC saying my intolerant behavior and refusal to accept their culture has made the group an unsafe place for them, so they'll be leaving. My BF and friends asked me to apologize to So. This conversation happened on the GC and I conceded and said I'll put it up on here, and whatever the outcome we act accordingly. So the AITA for not eating the Chinese. AITA for saying my parents should give me some of the money that they spend on my sister. My sister is a genius. Like she took an IQ test and they said she was a genius. Both of us went to a Catholic school for elementary school. My sister was taking 8th grade algebra by the time she was in 3rd grade, and when she was in 5th grade she spent the first half of every day at a high school taking advanced classes. My parents pulled her out of school when she was in 6th grade and hired a tutor for her to meet her at her level and enrolled her in community college classes. Now she's in 9th grade and she just started at this elite school. It's so competitive that my school has been around for 50 years and she's the 2nd person to get in. This school is far from our house though, so we moved closer to the school and my parents enrolled me in public school. They said the public schools here are great, so there's no reason for me to go to private school, even though my sister is going to a private school so expensive that my mom is working for the first time in her life to pay for it after my sister's scholarship. I really think it's not fair that my sister goes to this fancy school while I'm stuck at public school, so I told them they should be giving me at least some of the money that they're spending on my sister and her school to make up for the fact that I had to move for her school and that now I'm stuck at public school because her school is too expensive. They laughed at me and said that I was being spoiled. My school is just fine, and if I want money I need to babysit or walk dogs. I think they're being unfair and favoring my sister, but every family member that I tell about this takes their side. AITA for thinking I should get some of the money too. AITA for telling my ex-wife I don't care if she and her family starve, that I am just responsible for our sons. I have two sons ages 16 and 14 with my ex-wife. Our marriage reached a bitter end when I learned she had remained married to me for over 3 years, so I would support her through returning to school so she could switch careers to an even better paying one, despite her old one paying as much as mine. For years I tried like hell to save our marriage because I felt it fracture. She played along until she got what she wanted, and then she was honest that she had never wanted to save our marriage and had been over me for years. When we divorced, custody was set to 50 over 50 of our boys, and she was ordered to pay child support to me because she was making so much more after her change of career and education. She remarried a year after our divorce and had more children. After the birth of her last child 4 years ago, things got bad. Her husband was diagnosed with cancer. Then one of her kids got diagnosed with a long-term medical condition. Then COVID impacted her job. Our boys would tell me how rough things were at their moms and how they wanted to live more with me. So I went to court and the judge moved her down to every other weekend and changed the child support order to reflect her decrease in custody. Recently, she had to move into a smaller house because of how badly they were struggling, and then she came to me for help after the courts refused to end the child support payments. She told me I needed to help her and that I should be helping to take care of my boy's family, and that's what she and her family are. I told her she used me for 3 fucking years so she could survive off my money. She did not get to ask me for more to support a family that is not my own. She called me a selfish asshole, told me her family is living off charity, and they could be so much better off if I would help them. I asked her why I was supposed to care. She told me she wished she had cheated while we were together and that using me for money wasn't enough. Again, she told me about her family and how they would starve. I told her I didn't care if they did or not, that none of them are my problem and I only care about my kids. She called me an asshole. Her husband sent me a text that night saying I was a cruel asshole and he hoped the boys would hate me when they realize I want their whole family to suffer. AITA for refusing to tell my husband the gender of our baby after he skipped going to the doctor appointment with me. My husband and I are expecting. This is our first baby and we're excited. Thing is, he barely attends any doctor appointments with me and his excuses aren't even valid. He's willing to miss the doctor appointment over soccer or a drink or board game with friends. His response is always, I'm not the one carrying the baby. Why do I have to go see the doctor with you? Last week was my final straw. He was supposed to come with me for the baby's gender reveal appointment, but he chose to not come last minute because his friend invited him to fish and chips meal. I was pretty livid but didn't make a fuss about it. Mom went with me instead. He texted asking me to tell him the results, but I refused to tell him. He kept spam calling me, but I hung up each time. He came home fuming, demanding I tell him the results, but I refused and bluntly told him since he refused to attend the appointment, then he gets no results till after the baby's born, and said I was wiling to die on this hill. He went off calling me spiteful and immature for doing this and punishing him. He said he's the father and has the right to know. He didn't call me dramatic since I wasn't alone and mom was with me. I said he gets no results, period. He's been fuming about it and told his family, and they're now pressuring me to stop playing mind games with him and tell him, but I declined. AITA for telling my mother that I love her but don't like her. My mother read in some parenting book that saying to your child, I love you but I don't like you, is a good way to discipline them. I don't necessarily agree with that parenting book because, as a child, I viewed my mother liking me and loving me as the same. I used to have pretty bad attachment anxiety and would cry whenever she left me alone, and she would get tired of me and tell me stop crying. When you act like this, I love you but don't like you, then she would be cold with me for the rest of the day. As far as I was concerned, what did it matter if she loved me if she refused to talk to me because she disliked me so much? Anyway, that's just backstory. The main crux of my issue is that my mother was playing with my younger brothers, and the 5-year-old asked why I wasn't playing. I had just returned from school and walked in right to hear his question, and my mother responding, I don't think your sister loves me the way that you two do. I didn't realize it until that moment, but I had been mentally preparing to use my mother's statement back to her for my entire life. I responded, Mom, of course I love you, but I don't like you. Then I remembered why I've never used that phrase. My mother got really angry at me. She got up and went to her bedroom. And then she's been very cold with me the rest of the day. The only thing she said to me is she told me to not tell my father about any of this, because if he hears, he'll get angry at both of us for fighting and will just cause a bigger scene. I really feel badly for my brothers because they were confused. Apparently my mother's never used that term on them. They were also upset because the play session got cut short, and I feel badly because I could have just been nicer to my mother. AITA for responding how I did. AITA for refusing to embroider my sister's friend's child's clothes. I am 33 Fahrenheit, married to 33M, and have two little girls ages 7 and 5. I am 5'11" and my husband is a couple of inches taller than me. Our daughters will be rather tall as well. At the moment they are both built like baby deer. They are nothing but leg. We've had trouble with finding pants for them that fit. All of the pants that fit in the waist are way too short. So I improvised and brought back Bill Bottom's law. I just put the bell at the bottom and taught how they are long enough. To make them cuter, I have embroidered little flowers and stuff on them all. My sister's friend's daughter goes to school with my girls and saw them. She liked them and her mother asked me to do some for her daughter. I originally said sure and told her to bring me the jeans and materials and I could do them for her. I wasn't going to charge her at all. However, she didn't bring me anything and then called angry that I hadn't made them. She expected me to buy the pants and materials and do them for her. So I told her I couldn't do that and apologized. Now she is angry and my sister is angry as well because I refused. I'm not sure if I'm being in a hole because the little girl wanting them clearly thinks they are cool, and I feel awful that I'm letting her down, especially because I agreed at first. We just don't have that kind of money to be spending on other people's children right now. Am I being in a hole? AITA for not wanting to code a web app for my girlfriend's work for free. So I am a software engineer. This week I started a new job as a lead in a startup company and I am also running my own side hustle. My girlfriend asked me about creating some quiz puzzle game for her work because she and her manager came up with this great idea to make. And since I am a programmer, I should help her. For free. The company they work for won't pay for it, but they want to build it. Well, they want me to do it. She's even guilt-tripping me that she will pay from her own pocket. WTF. I would never pay from my own pocket for a company I work for. I have told her to use no-code tools to create their idea. I got annoyed with her manager's message, just need to do with bits for us. Yeah, sure. AITA for telling my sister to fuck off, which caused Christmas with family to be canceled. So my brother added all the siblings to a group text, which I hate to begin with, but it was about our grandmother. Backstory: my mom, my dad, my sister and her family live in Kai. My grandmother was living in Illinois until she fell and broke her ankle and it was decided to move her into assisted living near us. My dad and uncle technically did the legwork of moving her here. My dad now takes care of any needs she might have and my uncle moved to Florida. My other siblings live in Missouri. This is relevant to the story, so I'm added to the chat. My brother is bashing me and my dad and mom pretty much saying how Jiggy is lonely and what times we do visit her it isn't much and she's not taken care of, etc. like he has even done anything to help. We still have our own lives we have to live too. We do absolutely everything we can. So that rubbed me wrong and I asked if I could be removed from the conversation. My sister replied maybe next time just ask to not be added to the conversation. Obviously I was added without being asked. I replied I was just asking to leave the conversation. But thank you for the sass. She replies you're welcome. I replied fuck off, which honestly is the nicest thing I could have said, lol. She's been jealous of me and my son since her dad married my mom and constantly tells them how he and I are the favorites, etc. and talks crap about us and my parenting to them behind my back. I know this because my mom is my best friend and tells me everything, which honestly she probably shouldn't. And for some reason that was the straw for me and I said fuck off. She calls the parents crying as usual and my parents tell her to take it up with me. But because that happened we had to cancel Christmas since it's just us and it would have been awkward for everyone. So was I the asshole? WIBTA for tearing apart a family. I don't even know where to begin, but here it goes. My friend, we'll call her Rebecca, used to be a prostitute a while back until she got pregnant. She thought one of her clients, we will call him Bruno, was the father, so he got tested. He was not the father and she never pursued the matter further. But Bruno continued to come around. He wasn't hanging out with us or anything. Always just a quick stop, weekly. I found this to be odd. I finally asked her mother what the deal was and she told me that Bruno gives Rebecca money. Why would some man just be giving out free money? I continued with my suspicions and would see him give her like $500 every week. Rebecca claimed that he was just nice but something fell off. When I spoke to her mother a second time, she finally admitted that Rebecca is blackmailing Bruno. Apparently this man has a wife and children and if he doesn't give her the money then she will tell his wife he used to pay her for sex. I've spoken to my friend about this and she tells me well it's just until the end of this year, but she says this every year. So here's my dilemma. This has been going on for well over 8 years. I've tried locating his family in the past to tell them what is going on but they were nowhere to be found. WIBTA if I try looking for them again and tell his wife what is going on. On the one hand, I would want to know if something like this was happening to my family. On the other hand, my friend will probably get into a lot of trouble. AITA for not wanting to travel to see my husband's family. My husband is from Afghanistan and came to Germany 12 years ago. I met him at a community event and we were married 8 years ago. In that time, we have gone back to Afghanistan a couple of times. Once when we were married so I could meet his family in person and once more to visit for his niece's birth. Obviously, the country is unstable and those have been incredibly stressful times for me. It was not safe for me to leave the house, so I was often inside with his sisters for the entire duration of the trip. Please don't get me wrong, I love his sisters and his family, but the country is not very safe and Westerners face a very high risk of kidnapping. I learned to speak Arabic so I could communicate with my husband's family, but at the end of the day, I look and sound German. Now his parents are getting older and his dad just had a heart attack. My husband desperately wants to go back as he is worried that he is running out of time. His dad had surgery, and my husband is very concerned that we might lose his dad. He wants to see him again before he passes. Now the challenge comes in the fact that I am 4 months pregnant with our first, and I am terrified of going and something happening to either one of us. I totally understand my husband's fear of losing his dad, as I have already lost my mom, but it feels so risky with our baby now on the way. Even if he goes by himself, I honestly don't know what I would do if he didn't come back. My husband's mom, please forgive her as she is going through a hard time, phoned us the other day and called me selfish because I am standing in the way. She told me that her son will always listen to me, but that I am going to be the reason that my father-in-law passes away without seeing either my husband or I again. I totally understand where she is coming from, I really do, but I am terrified for my own little family and our safety. My husband is absolutely racked with guilt either way, and I am wondering if I am being the awe. My family are telling me that I would be out of my mind if I went or if I let my husband go, but doesn't he deserve to see his parents? Probably for the last time. Please help, I need an outside opinion. AITA for letting my daughters refer to their stepdad as their dad. With my ex-partner, I have 2 daughters. He walked out on us when I was pregnant with 9 Fahrenheit. He has been in and out of their lives since. He doesn't pay anything towards them. I haven't cut him off from them because at the end of the day they are still his daughters, and he had a right to see them. They have also said they want to see him. He usually sees them when they are at their grands. It's never arranged. He's usually dropping in to borrow money off her. I am now married to Seb and I have another daughter and a son with him. Seb has been a part of their lives for 8 years. Seb had never intended to take the father role for them as he had stepdads forcing themselves into the role when he didn't want them. The girls accepted him straight away and started calling him dad when he moved in with us. Both of them refer to Seb as their dad and refer to their bio-father by his actual name and call him Dean to his face. To begin with, Seb would ask them to call him Seb because he didn't want to step on Dean's toes. However, when 12 Fahrenheit made him a Father's Day card and told him that because he did everything for her that her friends' dads did for them that he was her dad, we stopped correcting it. By chance, I saw Dean when I was commuting to work before Christmas, and he was furious about the girls continuing to call Seb dad and Dean by his name. I tried explaining it was a choice they had made because of his actions, and that if he had a problem with it, he might want to start treating them better to earn the title of dad. He called me a fucking bitch and walked off. Then at Christmas, the girls were visiting their gran as their Uncle James and cousins were visiting for Christmas. I got a call from 9 Fahrenheit asking me to come and pick them up as they wanted to come home. Dean had turned up, drunk, and had a go at both of them for calling Seb dad. James threw Dean out of the house while Gran and the cousins tried to calm the girls down, but the damage was done and they wanted to come home. I picked them up. I have now been sent a letter telling me that Dean is intending to take me to court to get custody and for parental alienation. Postmarked early in December, it was delayed due to the post strikes. Their gran is telling me that it's my fault for letting them disrespect Dean. James understands where I am coming from but thinks that to keep the peace, they should have called Dean dad to his face even if he doesn't deserve it. I don't feel like that it's my place to decide what they call Dean and Seb. It's theirs. AITA for letting my girls call their stepdad dad. AITA for telling my girlfriend she's being naive and irresponsible with regards to getting a puppy. My girlfriend has been seriously talking about getting a puppy for the last 6 months or so, and I have been suggesting we hold off because we've been traveling a lot the last 6 months, whether it be work, pleasure, holidays, etc. Recently we've been talking more about it, and since we don't have any travel planned for the next 4 or 5 months outside of each of us being gone for about a week at different times for work, it seems like now would be a pretty decent time. When I bring up potential problems, I can see such as what if the puppy doesn't get along with the cats? What are we going to do when we are busy working? Or what to do when we travel? She gets annoyed, frustrated, and says she can't account for everything that happens, and she's looked into it and everything will be fine. I told her let's set a time to actually talk more about this and come up with a plan because it's a big decision, and she agrees. When it comes time to talk more about it, I ask her what she's already looked into. All that she has looked into is getting fake grass for our balcony so we can let them out to use the bathroom quickly if we are going to be on meetings. I asked her if that was really all she looked into because whenever I bring up other potential issues, she said it would be fine. She told me that yes, that's all she has looked into and we can't plan for every possible scenario. All dogs are different, etc. and she just wants to get the puppy and figure out where he needs help and fix his problems as they come up. I told her I think that it's crazy irresponsible to not go into this with a training plan or any kind of thought about crate training, behavior training, etc. Her response is that she's not going to crate train him or formally train him unless there's a problem. I told her that yes, all dogs are different, but there are obviously common traits and things that you need to consider for all dogs, and I'm not getting a puppy unless we figure out a game plan that isn't basically YOLO will figure it out because that isn't fair to me or fair to the puppy. This obviously upset her more and she gets very angry saying it's bullshit I'm making her figure out a plan when we didn't do this before getting our cats, and I told her that she's being incredible naive and irresponsible if she thinks that dogs aren't an order of magnitude more difficult to take care of than cats. AITA for saying that she is naive and irresponsible because of her mindset surrounding getting a puppy. AITA for waking my BF when his snoring wakes me. My boyfriend does not typically live with me but has been staying through the holidays. To start out, I love him and I generally consider him very reasonable and kind about conflicts we've had. We've been together a few years and he has always been a snorer, but typically when it wakes me or becomes incessant, I will give him a light nudge or say, "Can you turn over?" and he will turn and stop snoring. And all is well. Tonight, however, it happened 3 times, and after the second time I asked him to turn away so it wasn't right in my ear, he got kind of angry and said I can't wake him up like that all the time. He went to the living room to watch TV and I managed to fall back asleep. When he came back, he immediately started snoring again. He was facing me, so I said, "Hey, can you turn around your right in my ear?" And he really blew up at me. He said, "You can't keep waking me up for this. This is the 3rd time and it's really pissing me off." It's pissing me off too, TBH, because I have to work tomorrow, so I went out to the living room where I don't have a full couch but a small love seat, and I'm now curled up on it feeling annoyed at not being in my bed and unable to fall back asleep. I'm mostly annoyed that he blew up at me saying I can't just wake him up like that, but I feel like he isn't considering how his snoring is keeping me awake as well. But maybe I'm the one being unreasonable since I really don't know if it's a medical thing, in which case maybe I should be more understanding. He's also never indicated that my nudging him or asking him to turn over was causing problems before. AITA for telling my daughter to not ever come back after she left to go to them. I have a daughter who has started her 2nd year of college. For the past year and a half, she has been dating a guy who is quite well off. They attend the same college and she lives on the other side of the country. I've met him a couple of times and he is well presented, kind. My daughter visited us on Christmas break and was supposed to stay for 3 weeks as we advised, which she wanted as well. Me and my wife haven't really been close with our daughter since she started college, as she confided that the reason was that she had a lot to deal with. By a lot to deal with is her boyfriend's drug benders. According to my daughter, when they first started dating, she didn't know about his drug use until a while in, and she realized that he was severely addicted to a multitude of hardcore drugs. She would continuously try to fix him, and he would go through these times when he is strictly sober until he falls back, and my daughter would feel inclined to make him happy at all costs so he can be sober for longer next time. Nonetheless, he went to his family and our daughter came to us. The whole time she was near the edge, though tried hard to keep up a happy facade. She would constantly check if he was alright and be severely panicky. A couple of days back, when me and my wife were preparing for a big dinner for all of our relatives, she came to us, looked like she has been crying, and told us that she would have to leave earlier than expected. We all knew she was going to run to him as he probably stopped his sobriety, especially since he was with family. My wife was understanding and tried to offer her as much solace as possible, though I felt quite irritated that he had somehow managed to ruin our family time. Not only did he ruin our planned dinner, but he ruined her whole stay, as she was always on the fringe of frenzy. I told my daughter once my wife left to bring her supplies that you may as well never come back if this is the way you are. My daughter was clearly taken aback by this and just left upset. After my wife helped her pack, she came downstairs to me and got angry at me for saying such a thing, and now our daughter doesn't ever want to come back. My daughter drove back to God knows where, clearly upset at me as she didn't say anything to me, though said goodbye to her mother. My wife has been distant with me ever since, as I am a kid in itself, and should have never spoken to our daughter in that manner. AITA for telling my BF that he ruined my night and asking him to apologize to all of our friends. My BF, John, and I have a nice relationship, the most stable one I ever had for sure. He is a great person who is appreciated by both my family and my friends, and who makes me a better person. John had always been extremely patient and kind, which is why his behavior that I will talk about is bothering me a lot. For context, John lost his mother 3 years ago on the evening of the 24th of December. My parents and me live in Germany. However, my parents are English, so this year it was decided that Christmas would be spent in the UK, and of course I invited John. The 24th had been a day John always spent with his grandmother. However, the tickets were cheaper on the 24th to go to the UK, and even though I proposed to go on the 25th, John told me it was okay to leave on the 24th. So we left. The first part of the journey, we were at one of my father's closest friends who just lost his wife, so everyone was in mourning and it was a difficult atmosphere. Also, the 2 days family and rest of the time alone time with John was reduced to spending time with one of my family members every day and having no time for ourselves. Me and my siblings argued. My parents argued. Siblings, me and parents argued. It was horrible, but John stayed calm and comprehensive. We came back in the morning of the 31st, slept, and then spent time with some of my friends. John was okay, not himself, but not unpleasant. Afterwards we went out. John isn't particularly for that kind of music we listened to at the party, but whenever I asked if he was okay, he said yes. At a certain moment, we went to another party in a small venue. There was also hardcore metal. I know John doesn't like hardcore metal. I told him before. I told him he could go home whenever he wanted. He seemed pissed at a certain moment. Told me he wanted to go home. I told him stay for another 20 minutes. Make an effort. This was at 4 in the morning. John then lost it and said I spend the 24th and 25th with your arguing family. I have done enough efforts. I started crying. He told me how he would have wanted to be with his family, which he didn't express to me before then John left. And in front of my friends he gave me a kiss on the cheek which shocked everyone. I told him when I came home that in no way did I appreciate him arguing with me in public, that he ruined my B-Day, and that he is a party pooper for behaving in this way, and that I expect him to apologize to all my friends who were at the party. AITA for losing it on my sister's husband. So I have a sister, Max. Me and Max were inseparable our whole childhood and we always were really close. However, many problems happened after she got married to her husband, David. Since my sister started dating David, he was always weird around. Like one time when they were staying over at mine, he unlocked the bathroom door from the outside and walked in. He proceeded to urinate in the toilet as if nothing is wrong whilst I'm shouting somebody isn't here. Could you please get out? Last month was my birthday. All my family came around including my sister and her husband. All was fine until we started opening gifts. My sister and brother-in-law got me 2 gifts as I started opening brother-in-law's gift. He had a big grin, so I presumed it was something funny, but I couldn't be more wrong. When all the paper is off, I see the most beauty piece of lingerie. My whole family is stunned, so I lost it. I started yelling at him and calling him a pervert until my sister said it was just a silly joke. You don't need to be made at him, you bitch. So I just left and have been getting calls from my family and friends saying I ruined everything and I need to apologize. And some of my other friends think I had the right to do what I did, so tell me AITA. AITA for taking a nepotism baby joke too personally. At our family and I get together, the topic of nepotism came up. I'm assuming it's something on the top of some people's minds as a result of the New York Magazine cover. I had seen some buzz about it online, but I can't say I had given it much thought myself. The number of celebrities I care about is a small one and there's a good chance I don't know anything about their family tree. Because of lack of interest, I didn't participate in the initial conversation. The topic was brought up by my brother-in-law's wife, and I listened for a while before turning to a conversation with my husband. After a few minutes, my Bill's wife said something along the lines of I want to know Opus's thoughts on this since he's a Nepo baby. It was said somewhat jokingly, but I was still confused, so I asked her to explain. She said that since I worked for my dad and was basically handed a job when I graduated college that I was technically a nepotism baby. I replied saying it was a little ridiculous to group me in with actors and models making millions on their parents' name when my husband and I were just regular people working to support ourselves and each other. She said it was beyond just regular people working to support themselves when I made in a year. I thought the whole thing was wildly inappropriate to be discussing in front of all these people, and I told her so.